Members, you wouldn't mind standing for the opening prayer, followed by pledge of allegiance. Oh, gracious and magnificent Father, we thank you for this day. Thank you for your grace and for your mercy. We thank you for being with us during difficult times. We thank you for your loving hand and gentle spirit. As we go through this session, we ask that you be with us, lead us and guide us, give us the strength that we need to continue on in your way. This we pray in thy name. Amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Well, thank you. Let's see if we can get rid of this reverb. If you're watching us at home, no need to adjust your television sets. We are coming to you live. Council also has an agenda. We should have had an opportunity to go through it. She would ask if there's any additions, deletions, or corrections to that agenda. Hearing none, the chair will consent. We have minutes from July the 28th and August the 11th. We had an opportunity to review those. She would ask if there's any additions, deletions, or corrections to those minutes. Hearing none, the chair would move that they also be accepted with unanimous consent. Next items on the council's agenda are disbursements. We do have disbursements from September the 29th, October the 6th, and October the 13th. You should all have had an opportunity to go through those. Ask any questions of Ms. Lane. The chair would ask now if there's any additions, deletions, or corrections to those disbursements. Hearing none, the chair would move that they also be accepted with unanimous consent. Council, the next item on your agenda is a proclamation for Economic Development Week, which is October the 19th through the 23rd. We have with us Ms. Cassandra Van Hooser, our Tourism and Economic Development Director, and Mr. Risher, who is also current chairperson of Economic Development. Good to see you both.
Thank you.
And before we read this, I'll turn it over to you all for just tell us a little bit what's going on with economic development. What do you have planned for the week?
Sure.
Okay.
Do I need to hold this down this time?
I
Or is
don't
it-
think we do.
it's all-
I think we're good.
It's
We're
next.
getting better. The mic is,
Oh,
okay, you're good.
deleted it. I'm loud. There we go. Thank you, Parker. So, Mr. Pack, as you said, I have with me the Vice Chair of the Economic Development Commission, Mr. Reza Jafari, who's kindly come with me tonight to talk about Economic Development Week in Maryland. So it's actually next week, which is October 19th through the 23rd. And I'm not going to be real long because I know you have a packed agenda, but I do want to say why this is important. We have seen firsthand during the coronavirus pandemic what can happen when businesses are disrupted, when jobs are lost, and when the supply chains are broken. This is why economic stability is one of the pillars of Talbot County's resiliency plan. And we want to thank you, our Talbot County Council members, for your commitment to the business community. You have shown extraordinary support and commitment to our businesses and to the people who live and work in Talbot County. Put simply, economic development transforms lives. That is the motto for the Maryland Economic Development Association, of which I am proud to be a member. And we ask that you continue to guard this flame and feed the flame of our economic engine as we continue to recover from this pandemic and head toward what I think is a very bright future. So usually we do business tours and what have you during Economic Development Week. This year we'll largely do social media posts and blog posts to point to the success stories of Talbot County. because we want to be mindful of the fact that we don't want to be traipsing through businesses during this time. So we don't have a whole lot planned except for we really want to point the spotlight on the fact that economic development is really important to Talbot County and economic stability, thanks to Clay, as part of our resiliency plan. So Reza, you want to make a few comments?
Thank you. First of all, again, thank you very much for having us, for all the support and all the commitment that you have to the economic development. The economic development normally does not grow unless there is security, unless there is a proper rules and regulations, and unless there is a commitment from the public and private sector they wanted to work together for the benefit of the citizens. Again, we're trying to do the best we can on the private sector. We appreciate that everything that you do on the public side. Together we can make this community.
Anything from members of council? Either one of you? Gentlemen?
Well, I would like to thank you guys for all of your work. It's a very, very important group. Obviously, we need employers. We need to keep the employers happy here. I know we've been speaking about that consistently. And you've been running a telephone call for us. It's been fantastic for the business community and for individuals to find out what's going on, what resources are out there. So thank you very much for being that great person to contact and being able to be reached out by the community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Lesher, anything from you?
Just echo Mr. Dilley's thanks for the important work that you're doing and appreciate this recognition that we were able to offer at this time of year.
Thank you.
Ms. Price, anything from you before we read the proclamation?
You all need to delay the meeting because nobody can hear anything. It's all echo. It's all echo.
Well, while they work through that, I'm just going to give my comments, and maybe we will take a recess while they work that out. First of all, I would say to you, Cassandra, congratulations in being sworn in last month to the Maryland Economic Development Association. Congratulations to you for that. I acknowledge that to you. And Reza, thank you very much for stepping in and being a part of the commission. You certainly have shown well your enthusiasm for economic development, and you bring a wealth of experience, both national and international, to the table. So thank you very much for all that you're doing, as well as, I think we have 15 persons on that commission, probably one of our bigger commissions. 18. It's grown already. So 18 members of the commission. Thank them all for being a part of it. I'm going to go ahead and read this proclamation now, Madam Secretary, and then we will take a brief recess while we do sound that.
Proclamation, Economic Development Week, October 19th through the 23rd, 2020. Whereas economic stability and growth is key to the prosperity of Talbot County and its citizens, and whereas the staff of the Talbot County Department of Economic Development and Tourism work tirelessly as champions for the business community, creating, retaining, and expanding jobs that facilitate growth, enhance wealth, and provide a stable tax base. And whereas the Department of Economic Development and Tourism staff form strategic partnerships with employers, institutions of higher education, and state agencies to attract and retain high-quality talent, laying the groundwork to build the workforce of tomorrow. And whereas the Department of Economic Development and Tourism staff and their partners work to stimulate the community's entrepreneurial spirit and incubate the next generation of small businesses and business leaders, setting the course for Talbot County's future. And whereas the Department of Economic Development and Tourism demonstrated its commitment and value to Talbot County during the pandemic by providing a wide variety of resources and information to Talbot County businesses and nonprofits organizations. And whereas tourism and business development go hand in hand in Talbot County to provide quality jobs and economic vitality. Now therefore, we, the County Council of Talbot County, in keeping with the state of Maryland and jurisdictions throughout the state, do hereby proclaim the week of October 19th through the 23rd, 2020 as Economic Development Development Week in Talbot County and encourage all citizens to join with us in recognizing and reaffirming the importance of business development on a local and statewide basis. Given under our hands in the Great Seal of Talbot County this 13th day of October in the year of our Lord 2020.
Thank you very much, Madam Secretary. Chair will entertain a motion for the proclamation.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Risher, second by Mr. DeVillio. Madam Secretary, would you please call your roll?
Mr. Pack?
Aye.
Mr. DeVillio? Mr. Lesher?
Aye.
Ms. Price?
Aye.
Okay. If you all wouldn't mind coming down, Mr. DeVillio will make a presentation to you and we'll get some pictures taken.
Do we be up behind them?
Sure. Congratulations. Thank you so much. Thank you very much, dear. Council, we're going to take just about a 5-minute recess while we let Mr. Durham and Mr. Morris work out the sound issue here. I am getting a few text messages. So council will be delayed before recess for 5 minutes.
Testing, 1, 2, 3. Testing, 1, 2, 3.
technical issue here. So we're now back in session, and the next matter up for council is a proclamation, No Matter What, You Matter, Suicide Prevention Month, October. And we have for this, Miss Beth Ann Langrell, this is here. Beth Ann, good to see you. Now, this is probably the third year you've done this? Third year? You want to talk a little bit about this and what happens during this month?
Can I take this off? Okay. Thank you so much for having me. And yes, it is our third year, and it's a very different year for No Matter What You Matter, but we continue to hold our suicide prevention campaign, and we know that this year more than ever, and Katie Dilley, the Executive Director of Midshore Behavioral Health, and I will speak in a minute to give you a mental health update, but we have seen a severe uptick in folks reaching out for help, and we've obviously all experienced over the last 6 weeks an increase in folks who are attempting and or contemplating taking their life even on the Bay Bridge. And so I think it's become a much more prevalent social media piece of information, but we are continuing to see that every 13 minutes someone dies by suicide. And we know that there are a lot of folks struggling right now, and so we have done a pretty large campaign throughout the entire COVID period called Ask, Listen, Share. And it's a campaign to encourage folks to be able to ask the question, how are you doing, and really stick around for the answer. We know that a lot of times our lives are busy, and we'll say, how you doing? But are we really, as a community, stopping and listening to someone's response and hearing what's happening? Listening to that response, and then knowing as the community that you don't have to have the answers. So there's so many times people will say, you really want me to say to somebody, are you suicidal? And the answer is yes. You don't have to have the answer on the other side as the community member, but a simple response of, I'm so glad you shared, and we're going to work together to find you the resources that you need. And that's the share component, is that we're really encouraging folks to ask, listen, and then share the resources. Our agency has worked very closely with all of our community partners, and I know that for every mental health agency and our local EMS and fire and police, there's a lot of checking in that goes on with folks. And so one of the reminders that we really have used this year in our campaign is called Be a Light. And there's a video that debuted on Facebook last week. And we were able to pull in about 30 different partners. We've got Dave from EMS that participated, and Ray Remish put this compilation together, really paying attention to the fact that none of us do it alone, and that we can be a light for one another during this important time. Obviously, with COVID, our Ask, Listen, and Share campaign and Be a Light is a lot of virtual. We've given cups to all of our restaurants in town as a way to get the message across, because we can't do our normal shopping and dining that we typically do. But the objective of the campaign is to raise $25,000 to be able to continue to support crisis appointments. Our agency specifically has held traditionally 14 crisis appointments a week across our 7 offices. We are now up to 22 crisis appointments, and we can't keep enough spaces open. So where we used to be able to get people in on a daily basis, we're having to really work with our staff to take on more clients to get people in, because the crisis continues to rise. What we're seeing with our No Matter What You Matter campaign is that there's an acknowledgement that, you know, as a working mom, I might have had the stress of figuring out how to juggle soccer and baseball and my full-time job. I'm now juggling soccer, baseball, full-time job, schooling from home. You know, there might be families who are facing unemployment. We've talked a lot about in the business community about how to support folks there. So we're seeing people who normally, in the normal setting, would be able to manage. And then you add the other layer of isolation. You add the layer of losing family members and not being able to stay connected or to say goodbye. And so we're really trying to pay attention through the No Matter What You Matter campaign to let people know that they're not alone. Resources are here, and that whether we are seeing folks in person or whether they're opting for virtual services right now, For All Seasons continues to be here along with the rest of our partners in the community.
Excellent. Excellent. We do have a proclamation. Anyone else want to address?
So for the community who's following along, how do they make a donation to For All Seasons? So you said you were trying to raise $25,000.
Yes, so you can go on our Facebook page, which is For All Seasons, RCC for Rape Crisis Center, and you can donate right there, or you can go to our website. The video is about 3 minutes. It's a really great way to see some folks who are people who are helping in the community, and you can just hit the Donate Now button, or they can just donate by sending a check into For All Seasons at 300 Talbot Street in Easton.
Thank you. Well, that's a huge increase in demand that you're seeing. That's terrible and very unfortunate for the community.
Yeah.
But thank you for being there for them and being such a great resource.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's important for folks to know that our agency alone, and obviously Katie and I will talk a little bit more about the larger impact, but our agency alone has seen over 650 new patients since March 1st. And so when you think about the fact that that's a 188% increase from where we were a year ago, and that doesn't include the folks that are still calling and sitting on the wait list. And so we definitely know, you know, sitting as part of the Talbot County COVID response calls week after week. I remember when we went to, I was standing outside with Clay on day 20, and Clay said to me, I have a feeling we're going to be here, and I'm going to say it's day 40. And every time that you talk about what day it is on those calls, I think one of the things that's really important is that our mental health crisis has yet to hit. You know, the COVID crisis is in process, but we are going to see a continued residual effect of the mental impact that it has on folks. And so that's a really important thing for people to pay attention to. And especially with our campaign, one of the things that I've been saying a lot on either the radio shows that we're doing or our public announcements is that check in with the people who seem to be doing okay, who might not be doing okay, because there's a lot of folks who are having to put that game face on and just sort of power through right now. And so it's the folks who might be pulling back, or who you might see a change in behavior, or who might start to talk about giving things away, but it's also now folks who are juggling 16 different stressors at the same time and just simply having to make it through the day. And so that's something that's really important to pay attention to.
Mr. Lester?
On top of isolation,
Push the button.
on top of isolation, on top of the schooling challenges, on top of all the rest, we have economic challenges, and certainly
Absolutely.
those are stressors on mental health as well. So
Yeah.
thank you for the critically important work that you're doing.
Absolutely.
You are saving lives.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, we have a proclamation here, and rather lengthy, so get comfortable. Madam Secretary, would you please mind reading it?
Proclamation, no matter what, you matter, Suicide Prevention Month. Whereas in the United States, one person dies by suicide every 13 minutes, and in Maryland, suicide is the third leading cause of death for 15 to 34-year-olds, the fifth leading cause of death for ages 35 through 44, the fourth leading cause of death for ages 45 to 54. And even though most of these deaths are preventable, on average, one Marylander dies by suicide every 15 hours, with more Marylanders dying by suicide than by homicide every year. And whereas, according to the Centers for Disease Control, the coronavirus disease 2019 COVID-19 pandemic has been associated with mental health challenges related to the overwhelming feeling of despair and loss of life caused by the disease and its precautionary measures, including the impact of physical distancing and stay-at-home orders, with symptoms of anxiety disorder and depressive disorder increasing considerably in the United States during April through June 2020. And whereas the CDC recently reported results of a week-long study from June 24th through 30th, 2020, whereby adults in the United States reported considerably elevated adverse mental health conditions associated with COVID-19. Younger adults, racial, ethnic minorities, essential workers, and unpaid adult caregivers reported experiencing disproportionately worse mental health outcomes, increased substance use, and elevated suicidal ideation. And whereas the study revealed that 11% of the 5,412 respondents surveyed had seriously considered suicide in the past 30 days, 31% expressed feelings of anxiety or depression, and 26% reported symptoms of a trauma or stress-related disorder. And whereas a Kaiser Family Foundation survey indicated that 45% of adults in the United States reported that their mental health has been negatively impacted due to worry and stress over the coronavirus. And many of those individuals who died never received effective behavioral health services for many reasons, including the difficulty of accessing the services of healthcare providers professionally trained to reduce suicide risk, the stigma of using behavioral health treatment, and the stigma associated with losing a loved one to suicide. And whereas, according to the National Alliance on Mental Illness, the COVID-19 pandemic has had far-reaching effects, including keeping people from seeking emergency care for suicidal thoughts, a decrease of emergency room mental health visits by 28%, and a decrease in visits related to suicidal thoughts by 60% in the month after the stay-at-home order took effect. And whereas, for All Seasons Behavioral Health and Rape Crisis Center has seen an increase of over 650 new clients since March 2020. To help support the increase, a total of 19 crisis appointments are now available weekly to clients in need, including same-day crisis appointments for people having suicidal thoughts. Additionally, the agency created the Ask, Listen, Share campaign, empowering all individuals with a call to action to reach out and support one another. And whereas the Governor's Commission on Suicide Prevention is dedicated to reducing the frequency of suicide attempts and deaths and the pain for those affected by suicide through research projects, educational programs, interventional and bereavement services, and urges all Talbot County citizens to recognize suicide as a significant public health risk and to declare suicide prevention and mental health support a priority, and support the development of accessible behavioral health services for all citizens of our county in an effort to reduce the risk of suicide and mental health challenges for people of all ages and backgrounds. Now therefore, we, the County Council of Talbot County, do hereby declare the month of October, no matter what, you matter, Suicide Prevention Month, and urge all citizens to actively work toward the prevention of suicide, to be a light for others, and to reach out to one another and ask, are you okay? Listen without judgment, and share vital resources to promote an inclusive and mentally healthy community. Given under our hands in the Great Seal of Talbot County, this 13th day of October in the year of our Lord, 2020.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. Is there a motion to accept the proclamation?
I move to adopt.
There's a motion made by Mr. Lesher. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. DeVillio. Madam Secretary, would you please call your roll?
Mr. Pack?
Aye.
Mr. DeVillio?
Aye.
Mr. Lesher?
Aye.
Ms. Price?
Oh, okay. Beth Ann, you mind coming down, and Mr.
Yeah,
Lesher's
no, no,
going to
no.
present this to you.
Can I?
Beautiful. Okay.
Mr. Stank, you're doing a wonderful job taking pictures this evening.
Thank you.
Katie, if you don't mind joining us at the table, joining Beth Ann at the table. Beth Ann, you can just stay right there where you are. Or you got some goodies for us. Thank you, Beth Ann. Yeah, let's leave them off.
Thank you.
Beth Ann, you can leave them right there with Susan. We'll get them. Yeah.
Oh, all right, I'll give them to you. Thank you.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Miss Dilley?
Thanks for having me.
Oh, thanks for being here with us. So you're going to give us an update on what's happening in your world over at the mental health resources and what's available. So we have Miss Katie Dilley here with us, Executive Director of the Midshore Behavioral Health, Inc. And so the floor is yours. Give us an update on what's happening over there at Midshore.
Sure. Do I need to press this?
I believe you do. No? She's saying no behind you. You should be okay.
I don't have to push it. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Well, good evening. Thank you for having me. I'm Katie Dilley with Midshore Behavioral Health. And I know I had the pleasure of joining you all back in August to give sort of a year in review of activities going on in our agency. And I know this evening you've invited Beth Ann and I to sort of speak on the impact specific to the Talbot County community and our provider network of behavioral health providers, and how the COVID-19 epidemic has impacted us. And I think Beth Ann is a nice compliment to acknowledge the activities going on at her agency, and I know that she certainly is leading an organization that is a premier provider, so we're certainly grateful for your service and all that you're bringing to the community. But we have several other providers in our community that have really stepped up to take on the rapid increase in demand for behavioral health services in the Midshore region. So I think one of the things most impactful, and we've touched on it with the proclamation, I was going to go over some of the recent statistics from the Centers for Disease Control related to just the sheer magnitude of need and acknowledgement of increase in symptomology that folks have expressed during the COVID-19 pandemic. I think most startling is the acknowledgement in our, we call them our transitional age youth, our young adults, with nearly a quarter of them reporting contemplation of suicide during the COVID-19 pandemic, and that is an extraordinarily concerning statistic. In addition to the increase in expression of anxiety and depression and isolation, we're also seeing an extreme impact for folks that were in active recovery, unfortunately coming out of that and resuming using drugs and alcohol as a result of stress and anxiety and the sheer impact of the isolation that the pandemic has created. We've seen an increase in our overdose deaths here in the state of Maryland. Thankfully, in Talbot County, we're pretty stable in terms of what we've seen with impact historically with our overdoses, but recently the Opioid Operational Command Center did release their second quarter statistics for the state of Maryland, and we have seen a significant increase in deaths across the state related to drug and alcohol and opioid related deaths, and fentanyl in particular. So in addition to our mental health crisis, we're also seeing a parallel crisis with our increase in substance use related to the COVID-19 pandemic. One of the things that Beth Ann and I talked about yesterday, just preparing for this evening, is in addition to the already very stressful work that providing behavioral health services can bring, we have to be sensitive to the workforce and the agencies that have been impacted by the pandemic. There have been some silver linings that have come out of COVID-19, and I'm happy to say last week with the extension of the federal as well as state level state of emergency, we will be continuing to be able to provide the majority of our services for behavioral health, both for mental health and substance use, by way of telehealth, which is extraordinarily helpful. So we are now looking at least an extension into January. And that's been wonderful to be able to extend services to our community members and those in need by way of telehealth, because I think Beth Ann can probably speak directly from the provider perspective. That certainly helped with accessibility, compliance with folks actually participating in their treatment plans. We're all in unique circumstances now with having young children at home with school, other family members we're caring for, stress related to being able to show up in person because of the concerns of exposure. So the ability to offer services by way of telehealth has been extraordinarily beneficial. We recently, with our Eastern Shore Behavioral Health Coalition, where Beth Ann is a member that sits on our committee, we did do a presentation to our Eastern Shore delegation back on September 24th related to things that are impacting providers right now due to COVID and just concerns as we move into this year's legislative session. And one of the things that we really honed in on was telehealth. So we did a brief surveying of our Midshore providers, and on average, out of 26 providers in the Midshore region that responded, 63% of our providers in the Midshore reported that telehealth is the primary way that they're delivering services right now to their consumers. In addition to that, we're able to provide services right now under the state of emergency by way of just telephone. So if someone doesn't have a smartphone or stable internet connection, they can actually utilize their telephone and be able to receive services that way, which is an extremely liberal way to provide services that is non-traditional. So we don't know if that will stay after COVID, but it certainly has helped during the pandemic. And we have about 27% of clients in the Midshore that are actually getting their services over the telephone primarily, which is really great, especially in our rural community with internet being not as stable and reliable in some areas. The fact that some folks can receive services by phone has just been outstanding. So we can say all in all, about 2/3 of the clients in the Midshore are receiving their care by way of telehealth. So that has definitely been a positive outcome for our provider and our system of care here in the region. But there's a lot of other negative things that have been adding on to the stress on top of COVID. As you can imagine, just the concerns that we're all facing around what the budget will look like as we move into the next fiscal year. So we're very concerned around just reimbursement rates in terms of individuals that are receiving their services through the public behavioral health system. Our providers are dependent on being reimbursed adequately, and the budget potentially could be really impacting the ability to have an increased rate of Medicaid reimbursement for behavioral health services. So that's something we're working tirelessly around to advocate for, because this is not the time, on top of everything else, to have a financial impact hit our providers. We've got an increased need for services. We don't need to inhibit the ability to provide them if we're going to impact how we're reimbursing those services. So that's something we're working out of our office to really advocate around.
And Katie, are you seeing patients face-to-face if they want to come into the office?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we have, we are seeing about 85% of our folks, our staff are working from home and in the office, and we have another 15%. Our office has never closed the entire pandemic, and we've seen people in person the whole time. So we've moved to a model now of split week for our staff, and our clinicians are responding to the request and the need of the patient. So if they want to be seen in person, our clinician is scheduling them in person. And I think a lot of our sister providers in the community are doing that very same thing. It's really difficult to hold, especially when you're talking about a crisis appointment and someone who's really struggling. That first appointment is super important to be able to be in person. And so that's a model that we've maintained this entire time.
Well, I think you were classified as essential, if I remember, from stage one.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, so, yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
And in addition to in-person appointments still being available, I would say at all of our providers.
Right.
I don't think there's anyone that's exclusively doing telehealth right now only. Our crisis services have not stopped seeing people in person. They're still responding 24 hours a day to any call that comes into the Eastern Shore Operations Center and dispatching to see people face to face. In the beginning, there was more formalities around what that looked like and how they responded to the homes or wherever the individual was presenting in the community. But that hasn't stopped at all during the pandemic. And in fact, we've seen an increase in the use of the hotline and the utilization of our urgent care appointments that are available not just in Talbot County, but in actually all 9 counties of the Eastern Shore. So that's been a real strength.
And I think that's one area that's important to pay attention to. You know, we talk about the mental health services of the community. Our agency, alongside with the rest of the mental health providers, are now facing a different kind of mental health crisis in that we have to be really mindful of the mental fatigue of our teams. So our staff is seeing an increased level of crisis through those doors, and there was never a break for the team, for many people. And I know that our agency is going to be working with Clay Stamp and his team to be able to talk through how his team is doing as providers. And I think that's another piece that's really important when we talk about the mental health crisis and where we are within COVID, is that the folks who are continuing to see people and get more people into their schedules, you know, someone who might have seen maybe 5 to 6 people a day, we're now asking them to see 7 or 8 people a day, just to be able to provide the needs. And so I think it's really important to call attention to the fact that people who are in direct service and who have been essential this entire time mentally are facing a whole different level of fatigue. And so, you know, if there's one thing that I could say to everybody is to continue to have self-compassion and work on self-care through this time. And that's something that we're really focusing on with our team. And whether you're a mental health provider or whether you're a business person locally, I think that's really important, is that we're all paying attention to that self-care, because that is a piece of the mental health crisis that, you know, I do a radio show with Mark Potter every Wednesday, and I talk a lot about the controllables. And so as we're moving through the mental health piece of COVID, it's really important to pay attention to the things you can control versus getting stuck in those uncontrollables. And so we're really encouraging folks in this time to focus in on the items you can control and be able to work in those and not get stuck in the what if or the but it could be different, because right now we just have to work with what we have.
Excellent. For the self-care piece, you're absolutely right. You know, during this whole 240 days, I lost 2 or something. You know, the grocery stores never closed and the liquor stores never closed. So you were home, you know, with your favorite beverage and your favorite 12-pack of cookies or whatever, and yeah, not a good sign. So look, ladies, thank you very much for all that you're doing. We certainly appreciate it, and appreciate you working with our emergency services responders over at the 911 center. They have also been, you know, on the ball since day one, haven't stopped working around the clock, as you know. And you know, addressing the mental health component of this will be an ongoing crisis as we go through the winter months, because as most of the doctors, national doctors, have proclaimed that this could be a very dark winter for us. We've already seen some of those numbers starting to tick up here in Maryland and also across the state, across the nation, I should say. So we need to stay ever vigilant in making sure that we're addressing the whole person, And so might want to get Robbie Gill in here about the YMCA and talk about the physical side of working out. That might be a good piece of it as well. Robbie or Derek White.
I think to that point too,
Yeah.
that we also need to be paying attention to the children, because, you know,
Oh,
we as
yeah.
adults can sit and we have tools and we have resiliency that we've been able to build up. And, you know, what I say to the community a lot is our children are experiencing something that's awful, but this is not the worst thing they're going to experience in their lives. But we have an opportunity to really be able to, from a resiliency lens and working with our children, to help build tools to be able to help them navigate what's happening. Because it's really difficult for, I know I have a 9 and a 10-year-old, and, you know, really trying to help them understand this horrible thing that's COVID and wrapping their heads around it. I can rationally, as a mom, sit and have those conversations, but I think that's something that we really need to pay attention to in terms of our children and the ways that we can continue to have those conversations. And don't be afraid to say to your child, how are you doing? And having those conversations on a regular basis, because I think our kids can tend to suffer in silence and think that they're supposed to put on that brave face like they're watching mom and dad do, and it's important to keep that lens. And I think one of the areas, we've just formed a partnership with the YMCA to have a staff member be a part of their facility a couple of times a week to be able to connect. So it's just, you know, the connection and having grace for people and being able to have those conversations and not be afraid to ask if you're doing okay.
Good.
That's one thing I've heard, is that out of COVID-19, I keep hearing over and over again that this is affecting people who've never needed mental health help before.
Yep.
And they don't know where to turn, they're afraid to turn, they're afraid to admit to anybody.
Right.
We want to make sure that they all know of any age that there is help out there. and that you guys are available. So thank you. I know that just here in Talbot County, we have surpassed the suicide numbers of last year already. So it is an issue. We have businesses that have closed during COVID-19 who've said that they cannot come back and won't come back. There's nothing like financial stress.
Right.
So anything that we can do to check on your neighbor and check on your friends and anyone that you interact with, especially that the grocery store folks who are checking you out, they've been on the front line the entire time.
Right.
You know, don't argue over which tomato you're buying. You know,
Right.
let's try to show a little bit of peace to one another while we go through this.
And I think Beth Ann made a really good point earlier, is that we're all being challenged to be resilient. And so if you do notice a change in behavior with anyone in your circle or at work or anyone you come into contact with, even in the community on a regular basis, and you see a slight change, it's okay to ask how they're doing. It may be a little intimidating. I mean, I think stigma always gets in the way of taking that first step to ask for help or seek it. But just that one question of just how are you doing, how are things going, can really open the door and make someone really feel connected. Because frankly, we're all experiencing a traumatic event together. And just gathering and talking about it in circles like this, I think is helping us remain resilient and strong as we move through this. But not everybody has these avenues to connect like we do. So really making a point to just be more mindful and sensitive is really important right now. And suicide is becoming even more visible. You know, we've had a couple of incidents recently involving our Bay Bridge that have been very visible to the community. And I will say, out of Mitchell Behavioral Health, we've started a partnership with the Maryland Department of Health and the Behavioral Health Administration, as well as the Maryland Department of Transportation, to set up a committee that's started meeting every other week to address how we can do a better job with addressing and sending messages of hope, and especially with folks seeing and experiencing what's going on the bridge. I mean, it just brings it to light even more. We, of course, always have concerns around contagion and people getting ideas like, you know, I'm losing my job, my business is going to fail. These things are happening around us every day. We've got to figure out how to make those connections and support one another even more, because this is very alive in our community and the stress is just extraordinary. So I think it's essential that we keep these conversations going with you all.
Absolutely.
Beth Ann and I were even speaking about perhaps we make this like once a month, we come in and just check in and talk about things, because the resources are evolving and changing and being impacted all the time. I mean, we connect as a 9-county provider network every other Friday just to talk about what's working and what's not. Because a lot of stuff right now in the state is very stressful on our providers with the absence of COVID. And then you add COVID on top of it. And we've got to be able to make sure our providers are sustaining business and being able to operate. So having that avenue to support one another across the entire Eastern Shore has been extremely helpful. And we've been pulling in partners from Medicaid and our administrative service organization and the Behavioral Health Administration to keep conversations alive. And we would like to be able to offer our time to you all as well, to come back more routinely to check in and not just have it be a special event, just to really connect so you all are informed as well, so you can, you know, be a resource as well in the community.
Thank you very much, Katie. Appreciate that. Beth Ann, Katie, thank you all both for being wonderful, wonderful agents of change here in the county, and for being great providers. We appreciate you so much, and thanks for helping out with our COVID relief effort. And the march continues on. Thank you, ladies. Appreciate it. All right.
Thank you for having
We
us.
appreciate it.
Thank you. Okay, council, next we're going to hear from an update on Talbot Humane. I think Patty, we bounced you back a couple times over the last couple of months, haven't we? Man, good to see you.
Finally, I'm here.
Finally, yeah, we bounced you around a couple of months.
It's all right.
Sorry about that. We had to move things around on their schedule,
You know,
so.
One thing you learn in animal welfare is how to pivot quickly, so it's all good. Thank you.
Okay. All yours, Patty.
I want to begin with giving you just the numbers from fiscal year 2019, or 2020, excuse me. We took in actually a 10% decrease in animals. The first part of the year, there was an increase, and then once COVID and the shutdown hit, we saw a 10% decrease. We saw 866 animals come into our care. That is the lowest number in 21 years at the shelter. We're still seeing twice as many cats as dogs, and the number of exotics has increased. I feel like anytime there's a movie, a Facebook, YouTube video, some kind of animal that is interesting, we see those animals within the next couple of months showing up.
Give me an example of what exotic animals you've seen.
Snakes, lizards. I'm all about reptiles if they have legs, so I'm good with it.
Snakes, lizards, okay.
Tortoises and turtles, we're seeing an increase in coming in. I'm a crazy tortoise lady, but I don't need a whole house full. So those kinds of animals we're seeing an increase in. We had an outcome of 419 straight adoptions, 88 returned to owners. That number seems low, but our officers are doing a great job of reuniting in the field when an animal gets lost, as well as social media has been a great resource for connecting people so that animals don't have to come into our care. We had 111 owner-requested euthanasias for sick and elderly pets. 113 shelter pets were euthanized for being ill or behaviorally unsound. And we had 250 animals that benefited from our foster program. Those are animals that actually went into homes here in Talbot County or surrounding counties to be convalesced or raised until they were old enough to be adopted. Animal control also saw a decrease this year, 337 initial complaints. That's down 16% from last year, and that decrease, most of that occurred during the COVID shutdown. We're also seeing, we did have a halt. We had passed the ordinance for doing inspections on facilities, and COVID sort of stopped that for a little bit. We have started that up, and it's going well. I am personally doing the inspections with another officer so they can be trained, and it's going well. We have actually seen an increase in bite cases pretty substantially. Some of that is, we always see an increase around holidays, but we think people and children being home, not reading the signs. So we are working on launching a 2021 bite prevention campaign to help educate the community on how to be safe around your own pets and safe around other animals that you may come in contact with in the community. So not just the laws and ordinances, but how to be a responsible neighbor and pet owner. I continue to share with you that our belief at Talbot Humane is that the best shelter is a humane community. And COVID put that more than ever into a different light for us. While we saw less animals coming into us, the need of our community for help with their pets rose exponentially. Our pet pantry was needed and still is needed more than ever. We opened our pet pantry in 2008 in response to the financial crisis that occurred then, and we're seeing need at that level again. We're also, our intervention program where we're offering people acute medical help with acute medical needs for their pets, and even our spay-neuter program, we're scheduled into January now. So we're looking at other means of how we can support the community with these needs for their pets, as pets are such an important part of our lives, as they're family members to many of us, and the idea that somebody has to rehome them or surrender them causes mental health and emotional problems. So there's all those things that have come to light much more in the past 8 months that we all knew were there, but across the state, across the country, animal shelters are seeing these needs.
Patty, your pet pantries, are they all held at the facility, or do you mobily move them around like as we do with our food
So-
pantries?
So people can come to the shelter. You don't have to be a Talbot County resident.
You don't?
If
Okay.
your county does not have food in their pantry, we will provide you food because it's all donated. Our officers will deliver across Talbot County, and I have some staff and volunteers who will deliver. We have some indigent community members that can't drive or elderly, and we deliver food every month to them.
Okay.
So there's not a reason, if you live in Talbot County, that your pet should go hungry. We will get you food.
Good.
Along those programs I was speaking of, so we only had organically 866 animals come into our care, but just our spay-neuter program alone served over 1,200 animals last year. Our intervention program served several hundred residents, and our pet pantry, as I said, we have regular users that have used it for many years, or, but we've increased that need here recently. So our spay-neuter program I spoke of, that's a huge effort of ours. I think that's probably the number one way we have reduced the number of animals coming into Talbot Humane over the past 21 years. We have used up our grant money from the Department of Ag, but thanks to generous donors, we are continuing that free and low-cost program. We did apply for the grant through the Department of Ag for next year, and we should be hearing here shortly exactly what we're receiving. I do know that we did receive funding, I just don't know exactly what that number is. We're offering microchips, $10 microchips to anybody who needs them for their pets through the end of this year. That's a huge part of getting pets home, and the security of if they're stolen or lost. And we are resuming our pet loss support group. That was suspended. We do that in cooperation with Talbot Hospice, and we haven't had it for these months. And we have seen a lot of people who've lost their pets. I certainly talk to people and provide resources to people who are struggling with the loss of their pet, but there's nothing like being able to speak to others who are in that same boat as you. And we will be resuming that. We'll be doing a Zoom meeting here these first couple months, starting in November. But hopefully after the new year, if things are safe, we may be able to do in-person social distance. But that's a really important service, I feel, that we and Talbot Hospice team up to provide. Our biggest concern really during COVID is that the people who need us most don't know that we're here for them. We still hear people in the community, some communities that don't have access to the internet, so they're not on looking at our website, or they're not on social media. They don't know all that we provide. So I'm actually working on, we talked about pivoting, going back to the old school flyer. I'm hoping I'll be able to get some flyers into perhaps the human food pantries, or into the schools that can be sent home, so that people still know that we're here and that we're still providing services, because we haven't stopped doing that.
It's a good idea. I mean, I think we can incorporate that into our food distribution, and you can pick up food for the household and pick up food for the animal at the same time.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have volunteers who have just been itching to do things because everything's changed. So that's what we're here for. We are still doing our senior internships. I'm hoping that we will have an intern for now that school is returning, that perhaps the second semester we will have a senior intern. Several of our senior interns have gone on to college to work in animal sciences, and it's really exciting to see them, flourish and see what they really like. That shelter work is a lot different than veterinary work, so at least maybe they'll have a step up when they go into that. And we're always looking for volunteers. As I said, things have changed, but we still need help. Dog walking, cat cuddling, and PetSmart volunteers to help deliver food to people in the community. As we know, we're looking at possibly another difficult few months, so people who are willing to help us get the supplies and services out to our community. And we do have some events going on. I try to find something fun to do, even though we can't be in person. We're doing a virtual Halloween hustle. People are posting pictures of their kids dressed up and doing their dog walk or 5K. We're planning on still doing our annual cookie walk. In December, it's going to look different because we have to be safe, but we're going to figure that out because who doesn't like Christmas cookies? And it's a great way also to be out in the community getting the word out. And I always invite you to come see us at the shelter. We're there, we haven't closed, we're doing all the things that we always do. It just looks a little bit different with our masks and limiting the number of people in the building, so.
Well, Patty, thank you so much for coming, and we finally got you on the agenda in person here. And I will say, for any of those individuals who are missing their animals, especially the cats, they can
Yes.
come look at my neighborhood, because I think we have about 3 or 4 roaming around every night. I see them. So if they're looking for a cat, let's tell them to come to my neighborhood and pick one up.
Or the shelter, you know. Yeah.
But great job. Anyone else?
Thank you.
Pete, Frank, Laura?
With the facility that you have, I know with the HVAC, we've talked about that in the past, but how are you with growth? Is there room to expand? Is that a need?
So
Or
we're talking about a new facility, which would allow us to provide more services on deck. Our real goal as an animal shelter, I feel any animal shelter's real goal should be to be put out of business for adoptions. That your goal is that all animals have a home. We know that's not going to happen, but looking to the future, when we're looking at sheltering, providing low-cost vet care, providing training services, providing a pet pantry or low-cost food services, things that are needed in our community. So that is something on our table. We are definitely looking to expand, and probably not on that property because there isn't a whole lot of room there. If you've ever been there, we have a couple little play yards, but that is and I'm not planning on leaving anytime soon, but that's like my goal before I move on in life, whether it's retire or move on somewhere else, is to see the next step of Talbot Humane. So.
I have a question. Hi, Patty.
Hi.
Go ahead, Laura.
I was curious, we used to have the thrift shop, whether that will be coming back at some point, or, because that was a really great place not only to donate, but to get good stuff and to help out the animals.
Yes, thank you for mentioning the thrift shop. That was a really sad decision to many of us, but the cost, as you know, the cost of running it, to run it and to make a profit that made it worth the while of a nonprofit to have that business just wasn't happening. I think some of it was, we had to pay rent and things like that. That's something that we would like to have in the new building, is a thrift shop attached in a new facility if that comes down the pike. But I tell everybody, if it was just my store and I could pay the bills and everybody had a paycheck, it could stay open forever. But it had to be a revenue source for the organization.
Sure.
So.
Okay. Well, Patty, thank you very much, and continued success.
Thank you.
And again, if anyone's looking for a cat, give me a call.
Thank you.
Council, next on your agenda, we're going to hear from Mr. Preston Peper, Director of the Parks and Recreation. He's going to be talking about his auditorium expansion project. Preston, good to see you.
Good to
and
see you.
I'll turn it over to you.
So the request tonight is for council approval on basically just the layout of what the expansion is going to look like and where it's located.
Okay.
Basically, the easiest way to explain it is that it's going to go kind of right outside the windows of the doors of the Y Oak room. We selected that area. It's largely unused basically because of the pine trees. There's not a lot you can do underneath of them. Also, it would displace the least amount of parking that we're going to have to replace when we put this in. So that was a thought of putting it there. As far as the layout, because it's a gymnasium auditorium, there's not a lot of, it's basically a very large room with 2 bathrooms and storage at the end of it. Surprisingly, with as large as the existing community center is at 75,000 square feet, there is virtually no storage in that building anywhere. So this would allow us to have a storage area for not only the stuff for the auditorium, gymnasium, but also to relocate some of the stuff that's kind of scattered around the center. So this is the existing center, that's the rink. This would be the curling rink. This is the Wyoke room right here. So basically the bathroom, the door that's right by the men's room that goes to the outside, that would basically be right here. You would take that as a short hallway that would then open up into the expansion. Oops. Oh, there you go. So, and again, this is just a blown up view of it right now. This is the current entrance is right here into the center. The Wyoke room is right here. This would be the expansion area. And then that's, this schematic probably isn't 100% to scale. When we had the feasibility study done by Davis, Bowen, and Friedel, they just kind of got the meats and potatoes of the project. They didn't really get into a lot of the specifications as far as, the roof pitch and stuff like that. Those are things that they said that you would work out with an architect when you go to do your formal plans. And that's kind of where this, this approval comes in, is because that's the next logical step, would be to see about having some actual plans drawn up that could then, give us an idea of what the cost might be.
Okay. So Preston, that addition, that's a better shot.
Yep.
So there's going to be like a little grassy strip between the existing outer wall and then the new wall of the gymnasium.
Right. So you wouldn't really share a wall with
Right,
the
no
Wyoke
shared
room.
wall, right.
I know we've had one experience with a gym and a meeting room right next to each other that didn't go well. So the
Yes.
thought is it would just come out a little bit. It would
Gotcha.
kind of follow a hallway down parallel to the curling rink, and then open up into the gym.
It's a good
It would-
idea, yeah.
Yeah, you'd still have an ability to leave the Wyoke room through those doors, possibly, and then go that way.
Okay. Kind of like a natural sound buffer. That's good.
Right. Yeah, they wouldn't, so part of it, that's, somebody had asked if you're just going to share a wall, and I said no. Usually that's not good when you're trying to have a meeting in one room and sharing a wall with
Yeah,
a gymnasium in the
we've
other
been
one.
there
So,
before, yeah.
yeah, so there would be no shared room, so there should be virtually no noise coming from anywhere into that Wyoke room during a meeting.
Is that the same rationale for not sharing a wall with the curling rink?
Well, the reason why we didn't do it with the curling rink is because it's insulated. So we didn't want to disturb the roof and the walls because of the ice that goes into the curling rink. Those have a different kind of block wall to them. They're not the same as just a regular block wall. So, yeah, so tying into the roof or tying into the wall, you'd run that risk of, disturbing that, the way it's sealed up to have ice in there. That's why a lot of time you don't get great cell reception in that room.
Okay.
And how long has this project been under works?
This particular one, I mean, there was one before this that was a long time ago.
Yeah, the first one was about 2003.
Yeah.
So this particular one, I think this has been, was done in 2019, the feasibility study. This has been kind of rolling, probably I'd say within 5 years.
Yeah.
It's really gotten some more steam lately.
I had a discussion with Mr. Peper earlier, and I wanted to, because this addition will be readily visible from Route 50, it'll present itself, it'll be part of our welcoming face for this facility. The last drawing that we have in our package shows a rather mundane, low-slope warehouse. And my understanding from our conversation today is that has not had the architect's
Right.
touch to it, and that is not what is intended.
I believe, yeah, and I believe.
What in fact we're more looking toward is that rendering on the second page that shows a pitch roof that reflects more the rest of the facility.
Right, and it would match. We'd have the same block, or the same red brick around the bottom, the same pitch roof, hopefully to match the other one. Yes.
Actually, the first one is around 2010, not 2003.
Well, still, so this is an excellent project. This is an opportunity for the community center to generate a great deal more of revenue while being able to be accessed and used even more. So thank you, Mr. Peper, for finding a way to generate additional revenue out there to increase the programs that you have. We discussed last meeting about the additional park down on the chop tank and how that's going to help work with Parks and Rec. So I thank you for thinking outside of the box, looking at growth opportunities that increase revenue to your department while still providing great benefits to the community who need it there. So I look at this as a win-win. Thank you.
Thank you.
With the potential growth with this facility, the potential growth of youth sports, are we going to be looking at transportation options, or I presume that now most youth who get there are getting there by their parents' cars?
Correct. And we found that most youth, even when we have activities, or to say down at the Easton Middle School, down at Moton Elementary, which were we found that they were still being driven there. So there was I think the amount of walking, I think, has really slacked off, so to speak. I think most of the participants, when we used to have youth soccer out at that facility, there were 550 kids in it. I mean, they obviously all drove out there. So, but at the same time, yes, one of the plans was to get with the bus, the transit, to see what it would take to get that to be a stop on their route.
Let's make sure we don't lose that as part of this.
No, I agree.
Okay. Well, if there's no further question, the chair will entertain a motion so we can have these drawings, Mr. Pepper can take these drawings and now go out and get someone to actually give him a design and a price and move this project another step forward. So I entertain a motion on the design phase of this project.
DeVillio, so moved.
Motion made by Mr. Villio,
And I'll second.
seconded by Mr. Lesher.
Hello.
Yes, I'm here.
I do have a question.
Go ahead.
So is there any, it's kind of a hard time to ask whether or not there has been any donors or anything like that coming along, because obviously, the concern is this ends up on that we have to pay for all of it or a lot of it. So I just wanted an update on any type of donations.
So no, there haven't been any donations to this point. Obviously, we've got some grant funding that goes along with some of our Parks and Recreation programs, as far as program open space within the state. At the same time, I think the reason why this is coming to light is because we've got an estimate from a potential builder that is much less than we had thought that it was going to be in the past. And I think part of the problem that we run into is until we actually get plans drawn up and put it out, we have no idea what the price is. I mean, we've gotten prices that range from $1 million all the way up to $6 million, and it's a tough target to hit when it's that big of a, when the swath is quite that big. So until we actually get something in place and have it actually, designed to meet some kind of specifications, we're never going to know what we're shooting for.
And so if Laura would like to make a donation, we'll still name it after her. It's open to naming. So we are looking for donors.
I already had a penny plan named after me a couple years ago. That didn't go. I'll skip it.
Well, so we do have a motion and a second. Again, Mr. Pepper, I'll go ahead and give you my kudos as well. We talked about this project, seemed like for years now, and I remember talking about this project back in 08, 09. This has come down dramatically from where it was in 08, 09. I think the price tag was almost around $6 million at one point back then. I think you've scaled this back quite a bit. to fit the need that you see that are lacking as far as indoor recreational space here in Talbot County. And it has been an issue since I can remember, trying to get enough indoor recreational space for volleyball, basketball, indoor sports, of those such. So I think this would be a great addition to the building. And I agree with Mr. Lesher, the way that you have it currently, the current drawing that you have here fits in quite nicely with the layout of the building. So it's not something that's stuck out of place or out of design. So very well done.
Thank you.
So motion second, Ms. Moran, you don't mind taking your roll, please?
Mr. Pack?
Aye.
Mr. DeVillio?
Aye.
Mr. Lesher?
Aye.
Ms. Price?
Aye.
Okay, thank you very
Thank you.
much, Mr. Peper, appreciate it. Is Mike out there? Preston, can you grab him when you're way out? Huh? Yeah, okay. Hey, Mike, how you doing, man? Council, next on your agenda, we're going to have an update for Easton Airport. Our manager, Mr. Micah Risher, is here with us, and members of, anybody on your board, Mr. Pett is not here with you?
Mr. Pettit sends his regards. Jack and I spoke today. We reviewed the PowerPoint that we're going to see here in a minute. We figured because of the logistics and just reducing the number of people in the facility, that'd be better if he just watched from home. So,
Well, tell Jack we all said hello and we miss him.
thank you, Council. I appreciate your time. This is going to be the good news briefing for the evening. Everything is doing well at your airport. So I'd like to report that the FAA did come through for us eventually, finally, and we are going to receive our grant for this year. It took us the third round of AIP vetting, if you will, but we are, on September the 1st, they announced that we will receive the $1.6 million grant that'll be reimbursements for monies that have already been expended. As you can see there, I kind of gave an overview. The lion's share of that is for reimbursements for the land acquisition services. That's the navigation easements that we've been working through since 2017. It's also important to point out that last year we did spend nearly $600,000 and we constructed nearly 11 acres of new wetlands in Talbot County for our wetland mitigation. So I know that question comes up sometimes, that we are going to disturb wetlands on the parcel that was the former Black & Decker, the Talbot County Business Center, and we have mitigated and we've created new wetlands. It's out in the CORDOVA area, so we'll be getting reimbursed for that. And I get this question from time to time as well about the trees, and are you going to replace the trees? And of course, what we have done is paid into the Town of Easton's Forest Conservation Act nearly $42,000. That is the fee to allow the town to choose where they want to plant the trees, and it goes into their coffers. So that's good news, because that's money that we were unsure of, and with the COVID and the questions marks surrounding the AIP funding, that's good news for everybody, that money's coming home, and it should be in the bank before December. Any questions about that? So we have several projects going on at the airport right now. I'll start with the request for qualifications period is currently open. It's a 5-year requirement that we solicit for aviation consultants. So we're receiving bids up through October the 30th, and then we plan on vetting those packages throughout the month of November, and we will be here in early December to deliver a recommendation to council for the aviation consultant for the next 5-year contract. Our obstruction removal program is moving along quite nicely. Phase 1 started on September the 14th. Currently, we are working on Commerce and Brooks Drive, properties along that area. A large share of they've already started doing some work on the Talbot County Business Center, thinning out some of the smaller brush. Next week, we will start work in the Hazelwood neighborhood. So that's residential. The residents are all aware, and we will have a lot of oversight will be there on site for the beginning of that. And we'll have either myself or somebody from AECom will be on site for the entire duration in case there's any concerns from the citizens in that area.
Were they notified by mail piece or?
I'm sorry?
Were they notified through a
Yes,
mail
sir.
piece?
Yes, sir. They were notified by letter a couple times before this began, but also too, most of them have either talked by phone, or we've had people in the neighborhood walking around and having verbal conversations as well.
Okay, good.
Yep. Taxiway Bravo maintenance, it was slated to begin today, but the rain pushed it back, so we're actually going to start tomorrow on Bravo. Work through the weekend. We'll have some taxiway and runway closures, but the lion's share of that's going to be completed by next week, and then they will come back in 30 days after everything is cured and put down the permanent paint. So they'll put a temporary paint down while they do the work, and then after it all cures, they'll come back, and much like when they do highways. So that'll be starting tomorrow. And this one here I really haven't briefed you on, but it's a good time to know about it. The reason I haven't really brought you up to speed is because it's not our project. It is Easton Utilities. This is a duct bank, and this ties in with the Mistletoe project as well. So Easton Utilities is going to install a new utilities duct bank from Power Plant 2, which is off of Air Park Drive. It's going to run, as depicted there, near the approach end of runway 4, off the runway, not going to disturb any of the current infrastructure. And it'll terminate over at the Mistletoe Hall Business Park. So you can see they're already working on the other end to put the utility tie in. So this is going to be a duct bank that's going to run all their utilities basically across the airfield. And it'll be buried deep enough that when we do go and do our runway improvements, nothing will be disturbed. So we've been working very closely with Easton Utilities over the past 6 months to put this project together and get everything approved. They did award it just recently, and we're expecting it to begin in December for the first phase. This will have some significant impacts for the airport. Most namely, it'll have an 8-day closure of our primary runway. But the way we have it phased and scheduled, that shouldn't occur until January, which is a lower traffic period from us. So our customers won't be disrupted too much. So the general business update at the airport, I'd like for you to know the big thing here is that your airport revenue remains strong, and that we are watching the expenses closely. The diversity of our business model is our greatest strength out there. We don't rely on that passenger service like the larger airports. So, we have a good mix of the business aviation. We have a good mix of our general aviation, our T-hangar tenants, but we also have non-aeronautical tenants. We have a good mix of business that's keeping us going out there, and the business model is very strong. Airport revenue is strong. The $157,000 CARES Act that we are awarded, we have our receipts gathered, and we plan on submitting our reimbursements here. We should have that ready to go by November. And just of note, while the COVID has been happening and everybody's been grappling with it, we have increased our revenue by $57,000 that wasn't planned for in this budget. So, and that's with renegotiating hangar leases and the new business deal, or the new deal with the new tenant on the tower, the new Singular Wireless, which we approved that about 3 or 4 months ago. They're actually installing the equipment now, so they are paying. But, it's a big deal also to look at the renegotiating hangar leases. So, the theory is, every time a lease expires, after the tenant's been in there for whatever, 10, 15, in this case 30 years, you have the opportunity to renegotiate and bring that business deal up to fair market value. So that's always that's something that we do, and like I said, $57,000 of increased revenue going into this this budget. The business aviation segment is increasing. As an example, in August, we did 528 what we call IFR, instrument itinerants. That's how we can figure those are the jets, those are the twin, the turboprops. These are people that are using our airport for business. So in the month of August, about 19 business users a day in and out of Easton Airport. We also have interest in flight training has increased. I've had a good handful of parents reach out to me, and basically the story is, all of the other activities have been canceled. My child can't play sports, they can't do this. Can they learn to fly? And they can. Our flight schools are operating. So we have 2 flight schools there with Trident and Easton Aviation, and they're both actively training students. Being one-on-one with your instructor in the cockpit with masks on, it's that's your only human exposure, so it's a pretty good social distance activity. So flight training has picked up.
How old do they have to be?
We have teenagers out there. Usually, I think it's 15 is the general age. But usually once they get into high school and they're junior, senior, and they're really thinking about it. So, and our maintenance facilities, they remained open through the entire COVID. They actually got busy because one thing that we saw happen was when people couldn't fly, when businesses weren't flying as much, they all put their planes into maintenance. So our maintenance facilities have been going like gangbusters. They're scheduled 2 to 3 months out. And of course, Sugar Buns Cafe is dealing with the pandemic just like every other restaurant. So they have a reduced schedule now, Thursday through Sunday, but they are operating and they are getting through it. Some traffic statistics here. And I'd like to just point out, because this is one of my favorite things, is looking at the numbers. Point out just a couple things. When you look at the year-by-year, side-by-side comparison, the month of April, last year we did 6,724 ops. This year we did 1,800. That was your stay-at-home order, right? People, when people were told to stay home, they couldn't fly. And so, when you look at the month of through the month of August, we're down 21.5%, but some hopeful things here when you look at our numbers. And when you look over at August, even through COVID, and this is, when you look at the itinerant category, again, that's our business users. These are the people that are coming in jets, the twins. These are people that are using the airport for business. Last year, in August, we did 2,600. This year, through COVID, 2,700. We actually did more. We did more operations right now. And that can be explained because what we're seeing in the industry is for business use, businesses are not sending their employees or they're not flying through the airlines right now, right? Instead of sending your employees first class or sending a group of employees on, out of Baltimore, they're chartering smaller aircraft and flying them more direct. So and we're seeing that all over the industry. So right now, charter and private aviation is up while passenger service at the larger airports is down. So that would explain that. So operationally, although we're down 21.5%, there's bright spots in our business users because the jets obviously are going to burn a lot more fuel, and of course we're going to get more fuel sales out of that. So it could actually be where our operational count is down, but fuel sales are up, and that's actually exactly what we're seeing. So when you look at the fuel statistics, this is very hopeful. Airport jet total, over the same period last year, we are up over 12%. And if you remember, it's kind of ironic, about a year ago when I was in here talking about overall jet fuel sales, it was trending downward. We had kind of hit a plateau and we were lagging a little bit. But like I just explained, because businesses and people who are able to are shifting to charter and private aviation, our jet fuel sales are actually up. You look at the avgas, it's down 19%. That makes sense as well. We didn't have the big Navy. The PFP didn't have 250 students this year. They only had 30. So that's why the avgas is down. But overall, the fuel sales at the airport are up 6.2% this year. So again, and dealing with COVID and working our way through it, that's definitely very hopeful signs.
Did we get a military plane in there last month?
Yeah, last week actually, we had a C-17 did 3 low approaches to runway 22. They were out on a military training mission in the area, and they had asked if they could come in and make a couple laps over the airfield. So we coordinated some restrictions that kept them safe and high and quiet as possible, and they came through and drew a small crowd. So
I don't know about quiet.
Any other questions?
Anything else for Micah? Good. Micah, thank you very much. Appreciate all that you're doing out there.
Thank you for your time.
Great job, man.
Have a
Great
good
job.
day.
Okay, Ms. Verdery, there you are. Council, you now going to get an update on the National Flood Insurance Program's community rating system. Mary Kay Verdery here is with us, along with, is it Greg Allis?
Allis, yes.
Allis, good to see you. And he is the zoning and floodplain coordinator. And Mary Kay, I will turn it over to you.
Well, I'm going to let Greg start,
Let Greg start? Okay.
with where we are this year, and then I'll provide some information on the background and the point system associated with CRS.
Okay.
Good evening. The Community Rating System, or CRS, is a voluntary incentive program that recognizes and rewards community floodplain management that exceeds minimum requirements set by the National Flood Insurance Program. When the community exceeds the level of excellence set by the program, the risk of flooding decreases, and the businesses and homeowners reap the benefits of lower insurance premiums. Talbot County's unincorporated areas were brought into CRS Class 8 in October 2014. This class rating gave all qualified flood insurance policies for properties located in the Special Flood Hazard Area, or SFHA, a 10% discount, as well as gave properties not located in the SFHA a 5% discount or eligibility for a preferred risk policy. Our staff is pleased to announce that effective October 1st, 2020, Talbot County's unincorporated areas have been confirmed as a Class 7 in the CRS. This new class rating will result in a 15% discount for all qualifying flood insurance policies issued or renewed on or after October 1st, 2020 for properties in Talbot County's unincorporated areas, land located in an SFHA. Properties not located in the SFHAs will continue to receive the same benefits as before. As of September 2020, Talbot County has 1,544 active flood insurance policies with $498,775,500 in property coverage and $1,047,144 in annual premiums. As a result of moving into the Class 7, each policyholder in an A flood zone will save about $194 per year, up from $129 per policy.
We'd like to acknowledge, this is our plaque from FEMA that puts us in a Class 7 for this year. It's a very honorable, distinguished opportunity for Talbot County. There are only approximately 7% of all of the communities that are in the National Flood Insurance Program that are part of the CRS program. It takes a lot of work and dedication to get us here, and then to continue to move up in that program is an even better honor, and takes a lot of work annually to maintain that, and then to go through the program every 5 to 6 years and be able to be reassessed and reevaluated. We started in 2013 with a grant from the Ocean and Coastal Resource Management, OCRM, NOAA, and DNR, and we were able to work with federal, state, and county agencies and local citizens to create an enhanced resiliency program. We adopted a local floodplain management ordinance and firms the flood insurance rate maps that indicated that we were making changes that were higher regulatory standards than what was required through FEMA, and that was the opportunity that gave us additional points in order to be distinguished where we are in our class rating. When we obtained the Class 8 in 2014, we were at 1,391 points. Every 500 points takes you to the next class. So we challenged ourselves over the next several year period to work on different opportunities to be able to get over 1,500 points, which is where we are today. We were able to do that by the flood management ordinance that adopted the 2-foot freeboard. We adopted the LMWA, which is the limit of moderate wave action, and the coastal A zone on our flood insurance maps. And we also, something that gave us a significant amount of points, and Mark Cahoon is also to credit for this, working with him, is our mapping services. On the Talbot County webpage, under Topics of Interest, we have an interactive map for Talbot County flood risk. That shows the stormwater patterns. It provides road closures, historic road closures when we have storm surges. It also has a elevation color ramp of the county. And that can be used if you are looking to purchase a piece of property or relocate your business in Talbot County, and looking at those historic maps that show you where the flooding risks are. And, you know, it also is an opportunity for us as a community, and we've been working with clay and resiliency, and that mapping shows us where that is so that we're able to focus efforts moving forward on where we can improve those flood risk areas. So doing that, providing that public information, the public outreach that was associated with that, gave us the additional points, and therefore we're over 1,500 points and at a Class 7, which is a huge opportunity for the citizens of the county to have that 15% decrease. That is automatically, we are all assigned a community number. So after October 1st, if you get a new flood insurance policy or renew your flood insurance policy associated with that community number, you'll automatically get the 15% through your through your insurance carrier.
And did I hear Greg say this was just in the unincorporated parts of the county?
That's correct.
Okay.
Oxford is in the community, the CRS program, so there are other towns and communities, but they have a separate community number, the incorporated towns.
Good. Well, that's wonderful news, and you want to hold that plaque up again in case they didn't get a shot of it at home? So congratulations to you all for receiving that. That's wonderful. Nice looking plaque, too.
Right. And as I noted, I just want to thank staff for the work that it took to get us here. It's an annual thing that we have to do and file a lot of paperwork to be able to maintain our opportunities in the program. And like I said, it's only 7% of the communities that are participating in this CRS program. So there's about 1,200 out of 22,000 communities that are eligible for this program, that have met the criteria for the program.
Again, congratulations to you and your team, Mary Kay. Great job once again. We're now in the Class 7 in the unincorporated parts of the county. It's 15% reduction. Every little bit helps these days.
Right.
Absolutely. All right, anything else?
Congratulations, Mary Kay. Thank you so very much.
Thank you.
Anything else from council?
On behalf of the insurance industry, thank you. On behalf of the residents that are going to see the savings, thank you for doing the work that 93% of the communities would not do. This is fantastic that you are doing this. I know it's a lot of extra work on your department, but obviously the citizens are seeing the benefit of it, and thank you for that.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, thank you very much. Greg, thank you for being with us. Appreciate you coming down. Okay. We have introduction of a couple pieces of legislation, Council. And I just want to make this announcement as Mr. Salinas is making his way to the table. The public hearing that we had scheduled today on Bill 1464, Council, I'm going to ask that we suspend that due to the technical issues that we were experiencing earlier this evening. I was told that persons can hear us, but they won't be able to call in, and other members of the community may not be able to hear them. So to not go through those issues, we're going to suspend the public hearing on 1464. So anyone who's on hold or listening in, waiting for that, just want to let you know that we're going to go and suspend that. We'll pick it up at our next meeting. And likewise, we'll also ask that we suspend public comment for the same reasons due to the technology. People won't be able to call in and speak with us. So we'll get all this straightened out before our next meeting. Parker's already assured me of that, and we'll have it straight. So we do apologize for that. We have a couple of pieces of legislation that we're going to hopefully introduce tonight. The main one is the one that we received a couple of emails on, is the CORDOVA Master Plan. And I've told everybody we're not voting on this tonight. We're not voting. This is just introduction. So hopefully all those residents of Cordova have received those emails back already, and they understand that this is just introduction. So this is introduction of hopefully introduction this evening of the Cordova Village Master Plan, and I'm going to turn it over to you all, Mary Kay and Miguel. Miguel, okay.
Thanks. Good evening, council members. The comprehensive plan calls for the development of master plans in our village planning areas. Our village planning areas are villages that are zoned either village mixed or village hamlet, 2 of the 3 village zoning districts that we have. So far, since our 2016 comprehensive plan was approved by the council, we've done 2. We've done the Tillman Village Master Plan, and we've done the Bellevue Village Master Plan. So last year, I think beginning in July of 2019, we partnered with a consultant firm called Rummel, Klepper and Call, or RK&K, to produce a draft of the Cordova Village Master Plan for the village of Cordova within the village boundaries. And it doesn't seem like it because it's October of 2020 right now, but it was really on an expedited process. We started working with them on data collection and assessment of the existing conditions in the village of Cordova, as I mentioned, in July of last year. And the draft that you have in your package was actually produced in December of last year. We had 2 significant meetings in the village of Cordova with attendance that we were very, very happy with. In August of last year, we had 150 people attend the community meeting there in Cordova, to either in an open house format, a drop-in event, and we had an evening meeting as well. Out of that came a number of draft recommendations and a vision statement for the village of Cordova. And then we went back to the village in November of last year to get their feedback, their opinions on the draft recommendations that were included in the village master plan. And then finally, RK&K worked with us to finalize the draft that you have. The draft describes the existing conditions in Cordova. It describes the demographics and also the process that we took to get to that draft. The draft has recommendations under 3 main areas. One is under land use, another one is under community character, and the third is under transportation infrastructure, infrastructure, circulation, and safety. And so this draft was presented at a joint work session in January of this year between the county council, or with the county council and the planning commission. And then, of course, we had a shutdown after that. The planning commission did take this up. I think it was originally scheduled in May, and then it was postponed, and then they heard it in June, and then July, and then in August. After they held a public hearing in July and August, they recommended to the county council unanimously, recommended introduction of legislation to adopt the master plan, with their finding that it was in conformance with the comprehensive plan and the intent and purpose of Chapter 190, our zoning ordinance. And so with that, I'll open it up to any questions that you might have.
No immediate questions come to mind. Again, this is for introduction purposes this evening. May have been some disconnect or some miscommunication with some of the residents of Cordova. They were thinking that we were doing something tonight, and the emails were passed back and forth at a very furious pace earlier today. And I was trying to assure people that this is just an introduction phase that will be set back in for public hearing, in which at that time they can come in and speak to us face to face, hopefully. But also they're welcome to ring your phones and add any input or suggestions they may have to you directly to pass onto the plan. So this is just for introduction. We're not doing anything with the plan tonight. We're not passing anything tonight. only to move it forward so that it can be presented for a public hearing and further input by the community.
Mr. President, if introduced, we will notify the residents that participated in the planning of this document well in advance, so that they know that they can provide written comment in advance of the public hearing, and also, of course, oral testimony, most likely remotely, during the evening of the public hearing.
And as you said, I think the public hearing was very well attended. I wasn't able to be there, but I remember hearing the comments. It was very well attended. So, okay. I love the brochure. I love the layout. The way they have it set aside. The photographs are wonderful, very colorful and very bright. So, currently, right now, the citizens can, once introduced tonight, hopefully, it will be introduced tonight. Can they go on to your website to pull this down?
They can. That website is www.nextstep190.com.
Okay.
And if they go to the tab that says Cordova Village Master Plan, that's where they can get updated information on when the public hearing will occur, as well as download or view the draft of the master plan. There's also information on how to provide comment back to us, and as well as contact information.
Okay, so that's www.nextstep190.com.
Correct.
They can click on the Cordova Master Plan tab, and they'll be able to see what we're looking at here and offer any comments, suggestions back to you all directly.
Correct.
Okay, so
Yeah.
we want to make sure persons understand that, because there was some confusion early on today. Sure. Okay. All right, any other?
Mr. Peck?
Yeah, sure.
I was able to attend that public session last August, and I simply want to applaud you and the consultants that you brought in for really engaging a broad public in this. It was really impressive what you were able to, the interest that you were able to bring out in the community, and that you were able to gather from those persons who were in attendance.
I appreciate that, Councilmember Lesher, and as I mentioned previously, we were thrilled with the attendance that we got. We didn't know what to expect, but the community really rallied and came out. And my understanding is that there's been some follow-up to all to those two meetings, where there's actually a group now that's working to organize and support future endeavors in the community, including historic preservation. So hopefully that energy will continue.
Miguel, Mary Kay, council was briefed last month by Ms. Van Hooser regarding American Salmon deciding not to use the Island Harem chicken plant for their salmon production, and I believe they went off to Federalsburg or Hurlock, I believe.
Federalsburg, they may have a contract on a property right outside of Federalsburg.
Okay, yes, out of the county. So my question, therefore, is that building, does that now come back into play when we talk about the master planning of Cordova? I know at the time that we did this, the building was purchased by American Salmon, and they were going to do their thing, so we basically didn't have that to consider. But now that they're moving on, just as a question, do you think that building will now come back into play in some aspect, whether it be a wastewater treatment facility for the town? I see Mr. Clark back there, or something of that nature. How do you see that building, if possible, coming back into play?
Well, that's a good question. The recommendations in the master plan under the land use section, it references the potential, at that time, the potential salmon farm project that we were hoping would go on that property. I think that language could probably stay in the plan. The plan also talks about the potential, the opportunity to look into bringing a sewer system to Cordova, and one opportunity is to use the wastewater treatment plant that is there on the Harem property. I think under the economic development section of the Cordova Village Master Plan, it talks about opportunities, especially in the area of retail, but it also talks about existing businesses that are there, and two main ones, even though they're out of scale with the rest of the village in terms of the size of them, the Nagel Farm operations and the former Humane plant, that they were too important. Former one was important, and of course Nagel is still important businesses to the viability of the village. And so I think that we have to look at it as an opportunity now to see what we can do to market and what we may need to do in terms of zoning to offer something that's attractive to the market, to be able to somehow readapt the use of the former poultry plant there. So I think there's some significant opportunities. I'm not sure it necessarily has to change the language in this master plan. But, you know, and certainly when you read through it and the recommendations, if you believe it does, we can certainly take a look at doing that. But there's no doubt that we're going to have to look at, you know, what kind of businesses we can attract on a property that is unique in the sense that it has some existing improvements on it as well as that wastewater treatment plant.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay. Anybody else?
The only thing I would like to add, of course, is I'm going to follow up. Wireless communication service is weak or non-existent in parts of Cordova, as it states in here.
Yeah.
Those two parts are in the elementary school and in the fire department, which are critical. I'd like to thank you guys for helping me, along with Clay Stamp, on working on getting a cell phone tower put up there quickly. That's obviously will be separate from this, but I will be in the Office of Law's office tomorrow morning continuing to work on that. So thank you for all of your help with that as something that came out of this planning.
Yep, and Councilmember DeVillio, I can attest to that personally myself. One of the evenings I think the first meeting, I left my keys in somebody's car who was driving away back to Howard County, and I had to literally stand in the intersection of 309 and Kitty Corner Road, literally in the middle of the intersection, to find a signal on my phone to be able to call them to bring back my keys. So definitely is an issue there.
Well, Cordova, and to Mr. Villio's point, you know, communication up there, cell communication has been an issue since I can remember. But also, and I know Mr. Stamp can attest to this, as far as emergency services, as far as being able to respond in that appropriate window of time to people who are in need. So as we go through this master planning process, you know, we got to start thinking about, you know, sewer systems and emergency services needs up there, and as well as cellular needs as well, communication needs up there as well. So for the residents there in Cordova, this is just introduction. You'll certainly have your time to weigh in. A lot will be happening up here in Cordova. Not drastic, but I'm saying there are some needs up there that have been identified, cellular, emergency services, that we have an opportunity to address. So let's be proactive and think ahead, and not reactive and think behind, and try to address those needs while we can.
And President Pack, I just want to mention one more thing. It actually is in the memo. What you said just reminded me to bring up the Planning Commission's other comment, in addition to the recommendation of the master plan itself to the county council. But their recommendation is that they would, or their comment was that they would hope that the master plan would be a good base for continued discussions and implementation between staff and the community. So for those that are listening tonight, because we did send an email out about how to watch tonight's meeting, that's just a given. You see that now with the work that we're doing in Tillman, for example. A lot of these recommendations wouldn't happen or couldn't happen without the ability to go back out into the community and work on some of the details of some of the recommendations in here. So just by merely approving the master plan doesn't mean the work is just done and now we just go ahead and implement with, it does require on many of these recommendations community involvement. So.
And I think another major project in that area up there is the Douglas Park on the Tuckahoe. You know, once that is built out, and again, it may not be tomorrow, but once that is built out and people are using Cordova Road to go up there to the park, if there is a, a sandwich shop or a business that can stop there and get services on their way to the park, it's going to benefit the community again. Okay, that's just thinking ahead, and we'll see what tomorrow tells for us. But see, where am I? I'm sorry, I lost my space on my page. So if there's no other questions, Madam Secretary, would you read the title of the bill, please, of the legislation?
The bill to adopt the Cordova Village Master Plan, December 2019, in accordance with the 2016 Talbot County Comprehensive Plan and the provisions of Local Government Article Section 10, 324, and Land Use Article Section 1, 405, etc., an annotated Code of Maryland.
Okay, thank you very much, Madam Secretary. Since Ms. Price is on the phone, I'm going to ask Madam Secretary to call the roll for introduction, please.
Mr. Pack?
Aye.
Mr. Dilley?
Aye.
Mr. Risher?
Aye.
Ms. Price?
Aye.
Okay. This would be known, Ms. Moran, I have 1465.
That is correct.
Okay, and you do have a public hearing date for me and for the community?
Yes, it will be Tuesday, November 10th at 6:30 p.m.
Okay, so people in Cordova, Tuesday, November 10th at 6:30. We'll see you all here. And again, the website one more time is www.nextstep190.com. You can go into their website, click on that Cordova tab, and see the plan as it's currently drafted, and make any comments back to us as you will see fit. Okay?
Okay.
All right. Thank you very much. And we do have one more numbered resolution for introduction tonight. Madam Secretary, if you wouldn't mind reading the title of that for us, please.
A resolution to formally abandon and authorize conveyance of a certain portion of Cates Point Road in TRAPPE, Maryland. Said portion of roadway consisting of 0.4 miles, more or less, located astride two parcels of land held in common ownership with addresses at 31373 Cates Point Road and 31450 Cates Point Road, TRAPPE, Maryland, 21673. Further described as tax map 60, parcels 10 and 12, collectively the property, to establish certain conditions precedent to such abandonment and conveyance, including a survey of the area to be abandoned and revision plat at the owner's expense, and to authorize conveyance of the county's interest in such abandoned portion of the roadway by a quitclaim deed for no monetary consideration to the underlying fee simple owner of the property.
Thank you very much, Madam Secretary. I asked Mr. Showwater, who's representing the property owner, to join us at the table. And before I turn my attention to him, I'm going to ask the Office of Law if they wouldn't mind just giving us a quick rundown of the bill, the resolution. I'm sorry.
Sure, Mr. Pack, no problem. As the title describes, the purpose of this resolution is to abandon a small portion of Cates Point Road, which is a county-owned and maintained right-of-way near TRAPPE. And this situation involves the road coming to a dead end where you have a farm that's comprised of several different parcels. And the road actually runs through one parcel and then dead ends at the next parcel. But it's an area where you're really at the end of the entire roadway there, with no through traffic going anywhere else. And so what the owner has experienced is situations where there's been trespassing, poaching, that sort of thing at the end of this road. And what we've done in other situations that are similar is if the property owner comes in, wants the county to abandon the portion of roadway going over their property, we ask that, or require through the resolution, that they have a survey of the road conducted and that they go through a formal process with the county to memorialize the transfer and the abandonment to them. And so in that case, that's the completion of a revision plat that would go through the planning office. And ultimately, it would culminate in a deed from the county, a quitclaim deed to the property owner. So that's what's being proposed here. It's very similar to the Walker's Turn Road abandonment that we had not too long ago.
Thank you. Ryan, good to see you, and I'll turn it over to you for any additional comment.
Thank you, President Pack, members of the council. For the record, Ryan Showalter, 100 Northwest Street, Easton, Maryland. I'm appearing on behalf of the property owner, which is Kate's Point Farm, LLC. And as Mr. Cooper Smith indicated, the portion of the road that is the subject of this draft resolution is essentially the private driveway for my client's property. What we've proposed is to have the county abandon the end of this dead-end road at a point beyond which it serves any other property. So both sides of the road are owned by my client, and it terminates at another parcel owned by my client. So in essence, the county taxpayers are maintaining 4/10 of a mile of private driveway. But because it's a public road, trespassing, poaching, dumping, it's an area that doesn't get a lot of policing, so it's an attractive area for people to go, stop late in the night, and it's a nuisance to have those activities occurring on private property. So we'd like to free the taxpayers of the burden of maintaining this segment of the road, and also protect the property by controlling access and hopefully reducing some of those activities.
We don't have a picture of this, do we, Ms. Moran? Ms. Morris? That's okay. I got it on Grant. I just want to know.
And for the public, it is an exhibit to the resolution. So when the resolution is posted on your website,
they'll see it up there.
Exhibit A depicts the section of the road that.
I mean, what you said is certainly correct. All three sides of the roadway border your client's property. Just makes sense. And if he's having trouble down there with people coming onto his property, basically, although they're on a public road, but they're on it runs right through his property.
Right.
It just makes sense to me, that is, to alleviate him of that nuisance. So that's my take. Any questions of Mr. Showalter or Mr.?
So the practical effect for the county of this is that we will tar and chip 4/10 of a mile less road, and the snowplows will turn around 4/10 of a mile sooner than they are currently?
That's correct.
Not a bad deal.
Is there any, is the owner looking to do any consolidation of properties here, or there's no need to do that there's no, this is a one house per 20 acre zone, so presumably this is not being done for future development purposes.
These properties, and I don't have the exact acreage in front of me, but it's in excess of 350 or 400 acres. This is not being done in connection with any subdivision or development. The large parcel at the end of the current road has to have frontage on a public or private road. So the resolution establishes a requirement for a line, for a revision plat, and will basically be surveying the area of road to be quitclaimed by the county. And then we've prepared a private road maintenance agreement that we'll be imposing on it, and we'll be recognizing that same segment of road as a new quote-unquote private road, so that the parcel at the terminus has frontage on a designated private road. But it's really just paperwork. We're not changing the structure. The only physical activity is that we've been coordinating with Mr. Murtaugh and Mr. Edwards, and we will be doing a small widening just before the point of termination of the county road, so that there's an area for turnaround by the public.
That's a good idea. Yeah. That's a good idea.
This is out in a very rural section of the community that if the homeowner was constantly calling in the police about trespassing or about dumping, it would absolutely take a deputy off the road for much longer than is needed. I support this resolution.
By the time they get down there, they're gone. Yeah. So, Madam Secretary has already read it. There's no further comment or question. Since Ms. Price is on the phone, I'm going to ask for introduction to be done by roll call.
Mr. Pack?
Aye.
Mr. Pavilion?
Aye.
Mr. Lesher?
Aye.
Ms. Price?
Aye.
Okay, and we do have a resolution number, Council, of 296, And Ms. Moran, you have a public hearing date and time for us?
Yes, this public hearing will also be on Tuesday, November 10th at 6:30.
Okay. So Ryan, we'll see you back here on November 10th.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, sir. All right. As I said previously, we suspended our public hearing on 1464 due to some technology issues that we're having, or technical issues that we're having. So, Mr. Stamp, I'm going to move right into County Manager, if you're ready.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, turn it over to you.
Thank you, Mr. President. The first item that I have is requesting council appointments for 4 members of the Commission on Aging. I have their names, if you'd like me to read those off to you.
Please.
Okay, the first one is Arthur Cecil III from Easton, Susan Roper from Tillman, Chantel Matthews from Easton, Talbot Hospice, and Vita Gibson, Easton Asbury Place Apartments.
Chair would entertain a motion for those 3 persons on the Board of Aging, Commission on Aging.
DeVillio, so moved.
Lesher, I'll second.
Second by Mr. Lesher, moved by Mr. DeVillio. If there's no further questions, comments, Madam Secretary, please call your roll on those appointments.
Mr. Pack?
Aye.
Mr. DeVillio?
Aye.
Mr. Lesher?
Aye.
Ms. Price?
Okay, the next item I have is for the Ethics Commission. There are 2 recommendations for filling spots on the Ethics Commission. The first one is G.A. Irving, the third, and the second is Sharon Harrington.
Chair will entertain a motion.
DeVillio, so moved.
Lesher, second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further comment? Okay, Madam Secretary, call your roll on the 2 appointments for the Ethics Commission.
Mr. Pack?
Aye.
Mr. DeVillio?
Aye.
Mr. Lesher?
Aye.
Ms. Price?
Okay.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Council President. The next item I have is a request from the Department of Public Works to award a contract for installation of new piping and bypass pumping and sealing of wet well at Royal Oak Pump Station Number 2, and I'm going to have your county engineer come forward, Ray Clark.
Ray, good to see you.
Yes, Council, this is associated with basically Royal Oak Pump Station Number 2, which is at the, where we have Bellevue Road and Royal Oak Road. We have a pump station that's at that location. Ultimately, that station was installed probably back in the 1993. What's happening now is these wet well as well as the pump rails and whatnot have corroded. We're having spalling on the concrete, so this is basically to go ahead and take out where the piping vault is, and then ultimately put new piping in, and then basically new, let's say plumbing to the pumps, and then at the same time seal up that concrete wet well. And then once we've done that, we have another request, which is part, to put in pumps in a railing system.
So this first request looked to be $24,950 to be awarded to. Is it Breakwater?
Breakwater Incorporated, yes,
Breakwater
sir.
Inc. And it would be billed back to the users.
Yes, sir.
Of
This is
the,
actually
Royal Oak, Newcomb, and Bellevue areas of the county. With that being said, the chair will entertain a motion for the repairs.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. DeVillio.
Second.
Second by Mr. Lesher. Any further comment or question, Mr. Clark? Hearing none, Madam Secretary, please call your roll.
Mr. Pack?
Aye.
Mr. DeVillio?
Aye.
Mr. Lesher?
Aye.
Ms. Price?
Okay, that's the one. We have a
We
second.
have another request Ray Clark will go over with you. It is for a sole source procurement of replacement pumps for Royal Oak Pump Station Number 2. Ray?
Okay.
And Council, this is basically for 2 new Myers sewage pumps to be installed in the station that we'll be rehabilitating. At the same time, this also includes the rail system, so when you drop the pumps in, they're on the rail, they'll then seed into the piping. So there's a, so then when the pumps kick on, they kick in, they pump it into the pipes and then out into the main system that then connects into the Royal Oak Pump Station Number 2. We were working on a sole source because Myers, we're looking at replacing the pumps that we have that are Myers, and Hills is the distributor for Myers.
Okay. So I'm looking at a price here of $13,636.80 to be awarded to, it looks like Hills Electric out of Linkwood. Is that correct?
Hills Electric.
Okay. And again, it's going to be billed back to the Royal Oak, Newcomb, and Bellevue Sewer Service District. Chair, entertain a motion.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Villio.
Second.
Second by Mr. Lesher. Any further comments? Mr. Clark. Hearing none, Madam Secretary, please call your roll.
Mr. Pack?
Aye.
Mr. DeVillio?
Aye.
Mr. Lesher?
Aye.
Ms. Price?
Aye.
Okay.
Next item that your county engineer has is a request to award a contract for engineering design services for the expansion of the parking lot at Brickless Place.
All right.
Right? Any specifics on that?
Just let the council know we're utilizing the open-ended engineering services agreement. We've secured a price from Lane Engineering to go ahead and do the work, and I believe the total amount was for $18,880, and it's to basically do both the parking lot design as well as the stormwater management to tie back into the town system.
Okay, great. Any questions, comments? Chair, entertain a motion, $18,880 for Lane Engineering for engineering of parking and sewer water, and stormwater.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. DeVillio.
Second.
Second by Mr. Lesher. Any further comment? Madam Secretary, please call your roll.
Mr. Pack?
Aye.
Mr. DeVillio?
Aye.
Mr. Lesher?
Aye.
Ms. Price?
Aye.
Next item that your county engineer has is a request to award a contract for engineering design services for the remaining portions of Goldsboro Neck Road and Airport Road from Goldsboro Neck to Route 50. And Ray can add specifics to that
Sure
request.
thing. And the council, through the open-ended engineering services agreement, we requested a proposal from Davis, Bowen, and Friedel to go ahead and give us the design services. This was primarily for the work to wrap up the road widening that's associated with the Mistletoe Hall Farm Industrial Park. So we'd be completing that all the way out to Glebe Road from where we've ended about roughly Villa Road. At the same time, we've been discussing the idea of trying to do the survey work and topo work to go ahead and do all of the survey from basically the remaining portion of Goldsboro Net Road from, let's say, Mistletoe Hall Farm to Airport Road, and then also doing the survey for Airport Road. So that way we'll have the necessary plats that are needed for widening up that roadway, and then ultimately possibly working with the council maybe to go after some funding to have Airport in that section of Goldsboro improved at a later date. This is the primary focus of this proposal right now is to do the design. So we did receive a grant from the Rural Maryland Council, $426,000, and part of it is to go ahead and get that money spent, but at the same time do the, the culvert widening, which is also something that Davis, Bowen, and Friedel had done as well. They did the widening or the replacement of that culvert for us. So that's the other reason we went back to Davis, Bowen, and Friedel.
Mr. Clark, is it within the scope of this next phase to do the best management practice ditch retrofit along this section?
For stormwater?
For
Yes.
stormwater?
Yes.
Because I recall that when we did the earlier phase, we didn't do that for that section of ditch.
Correct.
So we'll be going back and doing this all at once and installing the ditches according to our own best plans for this.
And I think we're looking at flat bottom ditches, trying to widen up the ditch that we have, and we did acquire additional land for that on the one side, so we were looking to try and do more, over management in some respects in that area, where we did acquire additional land. Yeah.
Okay, so this is $426,000 from the Royal Maryland Council. This portion of the work looks like to be $103,445, again, to Davis, Bowen, and Friedel for some site work and design work on the roadway. Chair will entertain a motion.
So move.
Moved by Mr. Lesher.
Second.
Second by Mr. DeVillio. Any further comment or question, Mr. Clark? Here now, Madam Secretary, please call your roll.
Mr. Pack?
Aye.
Mr. DeVillio?
Aye.
Mr. Lesher?
Aye.
Ms. Price?
Aye.
Thank you, Ray.
Right, before you leave, real quick, if I could, I'd like to grab some of your time next week to look at the facility that's in Unionville. I noticed some rotten wood around one of the pump houses there, with the Unionville sign right there and the grass growing up. It's embarrassing. I'd like to see if we can come up with a better plan to make that a little bit nicer area.
For the
if
pump
we can.
station?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. Thank you.
Will do.
Okay, ready, Mr. Okay, we have Preston Peper, your Director of Parks and Recreation, come up. We have two items for him. The first one, you all received a request from the Chesapeake Curling Club for a reduction in rental fees for 2020 to 2021 because of the impact of COVID and their inability to be able to use it. So Preston, could you expand upon that and engage council with that request?
So the curlers rent space at the curling rink every year for their curling season. They spoke to us about possibly reducing their season and or trying to get a reduction in rent or even not having a season this year. Kind of just, they had sent a letter to council requesting a reduction to about half of what a normal month would be. Whereas I'm sympathetic to that. Other user groups at the community center are still paying their full price, and we have lost hundreds of thousands of dollars from the county standpoint to just start reducing rates from other user groups. I don't think isn't fair to people that are paying full price, and I'm not sure if that's really what we want to do.
Mr. Peck, before we get into discussion of this, my daughter is a curler, and I think I'd best recuse myself on this matter.
Okay, you're going to stay seated or you're going to stay seated? Either way, it's up to you. Well, did the board weigh in on this yet?
No, this letter came straight to council.
You can refer it back to the advisory board if you like for a recommendation.
Yeah, why don't we do that? I mean, you guys know what you're working with out there better than I do. I mean, and you know what financial difficulties you're having out there right now. So, you got a meeting coming up anytime soon?
November.
Yeah.
All right.
Since it's October and that's a ways off, I would be willing to support Mr. Pepper's recommendation. They could rent that out since we are so short in revenues. The opportunity for them to be able to rent that out, not as a curling rink. Reading through his memo, how much it would cost them just to paint the floor, the increase in utilities. I mean, just the cost of doing it, the revenue would only just barely cover that. And as you said, the other groups are paying full price, and it's the precedent that this could set. Unfortunately, a lot of other things have been canceled, and unfortunately, they may not be able to have a season this year if they're not willing to pay, the full price of it like the other groups are. So if they need an answer now, rather than waiting another month or 6 weeks until the Parks and Rec Board has a meeting, I'm willing to support his request. If they want to sit tight and see what the Parks Board comes back with, but Mr. Pepper, you've been you've had to deal with so many lost revenues. This is a community center that is very important to Talbot County, but it's never been designed to make money. We do subsidize it, anywhere from $300,000 to $500,000 a year. So, we can't just keep giving things away. While we are willing to subsidize it, if the group wants the use of the ice, then I think that they're going to have to pay the price of it. So,
Okay, thank you,
I'm willing to support them.
You're on the board, right? Mr. DeVille, I'll turn to you. I mean, what do you want to do?
Yeah, so yes, I am the board rep for this. This is an extremely difficult decision because it's the club's 40th anniversary, and you hate to see a club miss that anniversary. But I hope that it would be a club that would continue, and I don't think it's just going to close up if they end up having to miss 1 year. I know that Mr. Peper really respects and does a great job for the curling department, for all the sports out there, and I know this decision weighed heavily on him. I would support his decision not to let it go down, not to reduce the rate. It's just, that's a big cut, to cut it down from what?
It'd be about 50%.
Yeah, 50% cut.
To 35.
Yeah. And I was out there recently, and I did see an event in there. There was some kind of
We've actually had
gathering
quite a bit of rentals of the curling rink. Part of it's just, there's not a lot of large rental space in Talbot County for people to spread out right now with the COVID, that a lot of people have been utilizing the curling rink because it's, even at half capacity, it's still, we can still get quite a few people into that room.
So if it comes down to making a decision of allowing a better use of the space during a pandemic for safe events versus one sport that isn't able to pay for the bill for this year, I would recommend supporting Mr. Pepper's recommendation of not allowing it this year.
Okay, I'll make it unanimous, Mrs. Moran. I'll join Mrs. Price and Mr. DeVillio in their opinion, and Mr. Lesher has recused himself, so that'd be 3-0 to follow the director's advice. Okay?
Okay, so the next item we have is from Preston Peper requesting the appointment of a special police officer with the Department of Parks and Recreation. You'll explain that more.
So our current landings officer, Ryan Coleman, is he's a landings officer. In a discussion with him, the thought was, what are the chances of him becoming a certified special police officer? A little clarification, what that does is it gives him the powers of a police officer, but only on the designated areas, which in this regard would be at parks and landings. That's, nowhere else, I guess the pools too, but just whatever is designated within our department. So the minute he leaves those grounds, all those powers are gone. We've seen an uptick in vandalism and theft and things like that. Right now, our landings officer does not have the ability to deal with anything that happens at a landing that would be considered criminal. What we do now is we basically have to radio in for the sheriff to come, and the problem with that is our landings are stretched from one end of the county from north to south, east to west, and it's just, we've had times where the call is just, people have left basically before the sheriff can get there, and that's not, anything, that's not a bad knock on the sheriff. It's just there's a large area to cover. So Ryan currently is at his previous employer. He worked for a college in Annapolis. He was a certified special police officer there, so this is not something new to him. It would just be a different jurisdiction for him, so to speak.
And times being as they are, and we've been hearing complaints from residents down in Black Walnut Point and Claiborne and other landings here in the county. Of course, COVID has made everyone stay home and not venture out too far from their front door, so they're looking for places in the county to hang out and enjoy themselves. The one thing I like about your memo, and I certainly support, that this is not an armed officer, that this officer is there to basically cite persons for loitering, trespassing, causing a nuisance, and those kind of things, and giving them a must appear notice, similar to what the bailiffs are here. The bailiffs have, their powers are limited to the footprint of this building. Once they go beyond that footprint, they have no authority. But they do if you're within this building.
Wycomico uses this means for doing it, and then Caroline County actually uses State Park to do their policing of their landings.
Yeah, and just so people and the neighbors can realize that they have somebody, and we can't keep on expecting to call a deputy away from his patrol duties to deal with a nuisance problem at a landing. So I think times, again, being as they are, I think we've reached a point here in the county. I don't think we're going to go back to the days when people weren't using landings. We're about to look at what we're going to possibly do down at Bill Burton Park, and I think we just have to, look ahead, not behind, when it comes to these kind of things. So, I'm going to support it. I'm going to support it. I think we just need to have some enforcement down there, some eyes and some ears watching what's going on, and give the people some comfort that we are being responsive to what's going on in our landings.
Thank you.
Excuse me. I'm sorry about that.
And again, as the Parks Board member, I do, the board was agreed upon it. I support this as well. We need this. Unfortunately, we've gotten to the point where it seems like weekly somebody's breaking onto boats and stealing rods and reels, and it's expensive. It's easy to pawn and sell. So we don't have as big of a police force as I think that we could. So I think this adds another extra tool to provide a little bit better protection for the individuals and the public. And the most important part is not carrying a firearm, as you've said that you do not ever want that to be the case. So good job there. Thank you.
Officer Law had a chance to look this over. Mr. Cooper Smith, anything from your camp as far as us proceeding this way? Is there anything you want to add to this?
I have not had the
Okay.
opportunity to review this, but from what is described, I don't see any legal issues with it, assuming that the person goes through the proper training, and obviously some coordination with Sheriff Gamble
Right.
occurs. Then I don't see any legal issues.
And I think that was one of the park board's contingency is that they would approve it as long as Joe Gamble signed off on it. And in speaking with Sheriff Gamble, he didn't have an issue with this.
Okay. So should this pass tonight, I think at 2/3 of the way there, what would be the next step in this process?
So Ryan Coleman would then apply to Maryland State Police.
Okay.
And they,
Depending
depending
on
on,
the training up in Sykesville or wherever.
I think if he's still up on his certification, then he doesn't have to go do the training again. If not, then he would have to go do the training. So it's kind of a timing thing.
Okay. Mr. Lesher, anything from you? Okay, on the matter of the creation of a law enforcement officer or policing officer for the Talbot County Parks and Recreation, an expanded duty of our landings officer, if you would. This is a special police officer for the Department of Parks and Recreation's properties. Madam Secretary, would you please call your roll?
Mr. Pack?
Aye.
Mr. DeVillio?
Aye.
Mr. Lesher?
Aye.
Ms. Price?
Aye.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Preston. The next item we have is a request from the American Legion Post 77, Blake Blackston Post, requesting a letter of support to the Maryland Department of Housing and Community Development for Community Legacy Grant. This would allow them to conduct renovation and expansion of their facility and would require no county funds.
Yeah, they were before us about a year ago, was it? They came in about a year ago and showed us their renderings, and saw in a paper recently, I think they were in front of the town of Easton likewise. So kudos to them that they're moving forward with this project. I think it's going to be a big boost for them. Their building has some challenges to accommodate people there, and I think they listed that last time they were before us. So I'll certainly support this application. Again, there's no county dollars, just allowing them to get the grant funds that they need to move their project forward. So I'll certainly support it. Any further comment, question? Hearing none, Madam Secretary, please call your roll on the letter of support.
Mr. Pack?
Aye.
Mr. DeVillio?
Aye.
Mr. Lesher?
Aye.
Ms. Price?
Aye.
Okay, there are a couple other items that I want to share informational-wise. The first is County Council has approved the administrator of our Talbot County Volunteer Fire Service Longevity Program. You've given me the authority to give them an active year this year because of the COVID crisis. So they're going to look at 2019, their active list, and they're going to carry that to 2020. This is going to ensure that they're able to get an active year this year, since they are still standing by, they are still there, they're still doing the work. They just can't get in and do some of the fundraising activities and such. And so the county council's approved that we do this, which will make them whole in, if you will, the longevity retirement program for our volunteer fire service, who obviously you realize that their dedication is second to few, and we certainly are appreciative of. So I want to thank council for that. The next item, I just want to report back to you, the letter that you sent to the governor asking for him to reverse a decision on closing a medevac station was done. The governor reversed that decision and made the announcement. So our Trooper 6 here at the airport will remain here. That is a critical resource to our ability to treat the sick of the sick, the most sick patients, and get them to definitive care in an expeditious manner. So I wanted to report those two items to you, and then Jessica's going to mention another item that we have for you as well.
Yes, Council, in your Granicus packet, you had received an email from Richard Potter, the president of the Talbot NAACP, who was requesting a meeting with the full council on October 20th. And so we're seeking council direction on that matter.
October 20th. This is a community meeting from what I understand.
Yes, I can read the letter into the record if you'd like.
It's not that long, is it?
No.
Okay.
Good evening, Council President, Mr. Pack, and fellow council members. I, along with other community leaders of Talbot County, are requesting a meeting with you to discuss next steps as well as to how to appropriately move forward that embraces the spirit of inclusion and equity as it relates to the matter of the Confederate monument known as the Talbot Boys that sits on the Circuit Courthouse lawn. As a result of the decision to retain the Confederate monument on the courthouse lawn, there has been much civil unrest that has prompted community members to protest that will more than likely continue until the removal is achieved. It is very unfortunate that this matter and issue has attracted national attention through the New Yorker and other media outlets that have placed Talbot County in a very disparaging light, which has caused me great alarm and concern. The longer it takes for us to act in an inclusive and equitable manner puts us in direct threat of potentially allowing outside people coming into our county who could set us back negatively in working together to accomplish our desire of inclusion and equity for all constituents of Talbot County. Please note that I do not believe that all people who live outside of Talbot County would potentially cause a negative setback, but more so we as Talbot County citizens could potentially lose control of this matter. It is my desire, along with other community leaders, that we take a proactive approach to this issue and matter. Therefore, we are requesting a meeting of the full council on October 20th, 2020, to have authentic, transparent dialogue on how we can work together as one community to move forward in an effort in achieving a more inclusive, equitable, and welcoming county that we all desire to see. I look forward to hearing from you soon as it relates to our request. Yours sincerely, Richard Potter, President.
Thank you very much, Ms. Morris. Okay, I just checked my calendar for that date.
So one, I don't see that on the agenda.
No, it was
Okay,
county
so
manager.
where are we going with this? This is not an agenda item.
No,
Is that
it was
correct?
not.
Okay.
No, it's under
And
county
is this a
manager.
work session that he's requesting with multiple individuals from the community who we don't know who they are? So we don't know where this is or how big or what time? And we haven't coordinated with anybody else?
Correct. We're just simply reading a letter into the record.
Okay, so I think if it gets to the point where we want to schedule a work session, we'll certainly reach out to all community individuals who are interested at that time. I do not like this.
Yeah, I think we should, we're going to have, I mean, if the majority wants to have this work session, which I certainly support, have some control over, who's been invited there. Again, you don't want to have, and especially because of the situation we're in with COVID.
So again, we're still discussing something that's not on the agenda.
No, it's under county manager.
I'm looking at the county manager report. I do not see it on my Granicus.
Well, you won't find under county manager the information this gave us on Talbot County Fire and Rescue also. That was under county manager with Phil Sharkey. Yeah.
So we're
Sorry, this is a little different. This is not an announcement. Scheduling is done ahead of time when we can all have a chance to look at our calendars. I cannot remember a time in 10 years when we've been asked to pull out our calendars in the middle of a council meeting.
Bring this back.
So it was not an agenda item. It was not on the county manager's report. And other than announcements of events and things that are going on in the community, this is a very different situation that I think that we should take under advisement and come back to.
Okay. Well, I know that the letter was sent out. I don't know the date of the letter. It probably was sent out sometime this early part of this month. And I did receive it. I know the date was also incorporated in the letter that was requested.
This was, I'm showing Wednesday. It was sent to us on Wednesday.
Oh, the 7th, okay. Okay, so this is a request made by Mr. Powder. Doesn't list what other community leaders are also making this joint request for a joint meeting.
Who are they?
It doesn't list it. Again,
Okay.
those aren't listed. So I'm just reading from the letter. So I'll go with the majority. What do you want to do, Mr. Lesher?
Are we adding it to the agenda or not? I don't understand. What are we doing here?
It's under county. It's not on the agenda. We can't
Right.
add it to
We
the
can
agenda unless there's a vote.
resurface this at another meeting as an agenda item if you would like.
Yes, if you, I would, yeah, let's
Okay.
go ahead and figure out who these people are, who the individuals are, and if we're going to do it, we're going to do it right. We're not going to sit here in a council meeting and have a letter read where people are where one individual is asking for a meeting with all of us at one time. This is not appropriate.
Mr. Lesher?
Let's follow the staff advice on this.
I'll go with whatever, okay, so we can
We'll look into
put it
this
back
and
on as an
resurface.
agenda item, and I guess you have to let them know the next council meeting.
If we're going to schedule a work session, then we schedule a work session. But let's have some council input on how we're going to do that.
Is after the 20th, so I guess you have to notify them that, we won't be able to pick this up again until the 27th.
Okay.
It looks like, so it'll be after the 20th date. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Packer.
All right,
Thank you,
anything
members
more?
of council.
All right, so again, we have suspended the public comment portion of this because of the technical problems that we'll be having. We'll certainly have those problems corrected by our next meeting. And now let's go on to council comments. Ms. Price, I'll start with you since you're on the phone.
I'm good.
Okay.
Good night, everybody.
Good night. Mr. Lesher?
Yes, Mr. Pack. There's been a disturbing increase in theft and vandalism in our community, and I'll take this moment to condemn it in the strongest terms. This breakdown in law and order is not broadly representative of our community, and it does not reflect our community's values. Common decency and respect are the antidotes to this poison in our society. That decency and respect must be extended to protecting the individual freedoms enshrined in our First Amendment, the freedom of speech, including political speech, which is manifested in many ways, including the display of political signs on private property. Whoever has been committing theft and vandalism with area political signs must stop or be brought to justice. This theft and vandalism undermines our American values and the American way of life.
Thank you, Mr. Lesher. And just to a point, and I did get a call from Chief Smith down in St. Michael's about this, so I certainly echo your sentiments with that. I mean, persons have the right to put their sign up on their property for whomever they wish to support. Another individual should not be going on their property tampering with those signs. I absolutely agree with you. Mr. DeVillio, you have any comments?
So I'm going to use my time for comments to discuss the upcoming election, and after speaking with Jerry Cook this morning on the phone, our election director, she gave me 11 of the most common frequently asked questions that her office is being overwhelmed with currently. So this election is different in some areas, but the way, from what I understand, Talbot County's handling it the same way with absentee ballots, just calling them a different name. So here are a couple of the most important things that she has, along with the frequently asked questions. One, the deadline to request a mail-in ballot is October 20th. It must be in the election office by that date, not the postmark date. Must be received by October 20th. Ballots are on the way. The voter lookup for the state board website is elections.maryland.gov. The voters that are using it will see a cent next to their ballot. Number 3, very important, voters must sign and put their date on the back of their envelope to ensure the ballot will be accepted. 4, return the ballot in the envelope with the purple stripe on the front and the oath on the back. All these instructions are included, but these, again, are the most common questions that she's receiving. If the voter has asked for the ballot to be delivered by web delivery, the voter should check their spam folder to ensure that it didn't go there. If a voter has requested a mail-in ballot, they can only vote a provisional ballot if they attempt to vote in person. If there is a longer process, this is a longer process at the vote center, and the provisional canvass is held on November 12th. Due to the pandemic, there will only be 4 voting centers. That's the Easton Firehouse, the Easton High School, St. Michael's High School, and Tillman Firehouse. 8, early voting will take place Monday, October 26th through Monday, November 2nd at 7 a.m. till 8 p.m. each day, including the weekend, at, again, the Easton Firehouse in the bingo hall on Aurora Park Drive. That's not the normal area, it's in the bingo hall. Drop boxes are located at 215 Bay Street and the Easton Firehouse on Aurora Park Drive, and they are monitored for safety. Once canvassing begins, which is counting, you will be able to see if your ballot was accepted. It will only take a few days for the staff to update that information following each canvass. And ballots are rejected if the oath is not signed, if the ballot is not postmarked on or before November 3rd. And one last thing that she's also adding that'll be new is YouTube, because you're not going to be able to go in and watch them canvass or count. They're going to be live streaming it on YouTube, so you'll be able to see the transparency.
Okay, all great stuff. And I did have a chance to talk to Ms. Cook earlier today, and she was stressing, of course, make sure you sign. If you're sending your ballot back in, she stressed, make sure you sign it, you date it, you print your name on that back flap. IDs are not required in the state of Maryland. Some states require that you take a copy of your driver's license or whatever and send that in along with your mail-in ballot. Maryland does not require that. So if it did, you would see it stamped on the front of your envelope to include it, but we don't require that. So, great. Yes.
As long as Mr. Dilley brought that up, I actually have a question. Can I ask him a question to see if he asked Ms. Cook this? I know some people that online requested their ballot 3 weeks ago. The postcard came in the mail that they got in the ballot request, and they still haven't received their ballots in the mail. And so I guess I have a concern that people aren't going to be able to meet the deadline. Did she address that? I know this is council comments, but I wondered if she addressed the fact that it's been 3 weeks and people haven't got their ballots yet.
She did not, but they would be able to vote with a provisional ballot at the location, which would be confirmed so that it wasn't duplicate.
Right.
Thank you.
Okay. I have nothing to add at this time. I'll save my comments for a later date. County Council's next meeting will be on Tuesday, October 27th, beginning at 6 p.m. here in the Bradley Meeting Room. The council will be convening an open session at 4:30 and immediately adjourning into closed session to discuss real estate, legal, and personnel matters as listed on the statement for closing that meeting. On Tuesday, October the 20th at 3 p.m., the County Council is meeting with representatives from the Maryland Department of Transportation for the annual Consolidated Transportation Plan meeting. This will be a virtual meeting this year at the Maryland Department of Transportation's request, Information on how to access the virtual meeting will be posted on the agenda published this Friday. And this Friday coming up. Okay. Therefore, we have a motion to adjourn this meeting, as noted.
So move.
So moved.
Second.
All right. We're adjourned.